6:35 PM with a roll call, please.
Chairman Osterman,
Here.
Commissioner Olhafen,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Eberly,
Here.
Planner Sumwalt.
Here.
Attorney Macy. Administrator Nicholas. Here. Supervisor Brahm,
Here.
Supervisor Beal. Here. Supervisor Plotecker is absent and excused, and Commissioner Mouche is absent and excused, and Clerk Elise Capazzo is here to record the minutes.
Thank you. So we have a quorum with the Plan Commission and the Town Board here tonight. All right, notice was given that a joint public hearing will be held by the Lisbon Board of Supervisors and Plan Commission on Thursday, January 6, 2022, during the regular Plan Commission meeting, which starts at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin 53089, to solicit public comments on the following items. We have A, public hearing number 1, a request by applicant Hans Dawson of Land and Stone Products, Inc. for amendments to the Lisbon Code, in particular but not limited to Chapter 33.04 regarding blasting criteria and measurement of blasts. All right, Hans?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Dawson, third generation owner operator of Land and Stone Products. And I'm here with a number of professionals that help us put together the packet.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Green is good. All right, perfect. Thanks, guys. That helped us put this together. Some friends and neighbors and customers from the town of Lisbon, as well as you can see, a whole bunch of the best miners in the world. So thanks for hearing us this evening. So if you want to toggle to the next slide, Nate, what we do at Land and Stone and what we're really proud of is what's on your screen. So we extract from Lisbon some of the best limestones in the whole state. We dig it up, we run it through the machines that we've built, maintained, and operated. And then when the season's all done, we fix it because it's really hard, and that's what we're doing now. We're mostly fixing our gear. But mining is our craft and our passion. And we're able to do that because the people before us left our company and left our family with a good reputation. And we're hoping to do the same thing for the next generation of owners and miners. And how we do that is really shown on this next slide here. When you walk into our main office in Sussex, you're going to see how we think about our business. So there's 5 main groups of people that we interact with in our business. We have our customers, our vendors, our employees, our neighbors and community, and our owners. Each of those stakeholders have unique needs and have unique wants. And when we think about our future of our business, we have to balance those. That's why this is on a big balancing scale, because they all matter and they all have to be considered. How specifically we think about every decision we make has to align with our core values, which we have below. We respect each other, we do excellent work, we love to attack problems, and we care a lot about the future. And I hope you're going to see that in some of the things we're proposing this evening. Beyond the 4 walls of our quarries and beyond the box of our operations, we want to be a positive impact in the community, which is why a long time ago we established and funded the Land and Stone Foundation. And just in the last 3 years, we've donated over $1 million to causes both locally, regionally, and nationally. And we have a whole list of the stuff on our website, but just a couple of local highlights. We like to do fun things like the Sussex Touch a Truck, which is a blast, doing elementary school tours out at our site. We donated the playground equipment at the Maple Avenue Elementary. And then even regionally, we're supporting an organization called Bridge Builders Milwaukee. It's helping to make new and better communities on the north side, which has been hard hit for a long time. So if you want to slide to the next, what our products are used for is anything that has to be built. Pretty much any construction, we're on the site first. So we're used at some pretty high profile things like Miller Park, which is now AmFam Field. The rock from these quarries actually sits underneath and holds up that massive structure. We also were involved with the recent very quick addition of I-94 for the proposed development down there in Racine, Milwaukee, and Kenosha counties. And then everywhere there's construction, whether it's a concrete road, whether it's structural concrete, concrete for your home, and even the building we're in came out of these quarries. So our products are fairly ubiquitous out there. So before I go into our specific application tonight, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of ownership and regulatory history of these sites that should help frame some of the requests we have. So our quarries live on the intersections of Highway F and K here in the town. And on the west side of that intersection is what we will refer to tonight as the Helquist Quarry. Those quarries were actually started in the 1920s and have been operated for nearly 100 years. On the east side of that road, there was a series of quarries there, 3 actually started in the 40s, some by the Wolf family, and eventually they were all purchased by Vulcan. Vulcan's operation was operated until we bought it as something called a legal non-conforming use. So they had to comply with laws, but there actually was no plan of operation. The Lisbon site, which is the Helquist site, we're going to call it tonight, that had a series of plans of operation, and the most recent of which was worked out with your predecessors in the town and the Helquist family in the early 90s. And that's what we inherited when we purchased the site. So fast forward several decades, in 2013, our company was able to purchase the Vulcan quarry from that company. And then we worked with the staff at the village of Sussex to then bring our operation under specific regulations. So we worked with them to develop an ordinance and a list of regulations in our plan of operation in Sussex. And that was a good chance to refresh and modernize all of those regulations. In 2018, very end of the year, we were able to purchase the Helquist quarry, which is on the north and south side of Highway K, west of Highway F. And that quarry, once we purchased it, we had to come before you guys and ask for permission to renew the plan of operation, which we did. But at the time, it was requested that we come back and revisit everything and modernize our relationship. And that's exactly what we're here to do tonight, is to bring everything up to modern standards. And we have a number of different things that we're going to be requesting this evening. So the first public hearing is going to deal with blasting limits. So at the moment, we use something called an energy ratio. And this is actually something that we don't think makes any sense, and I'll kind of explain why. So the energy ratio that we're regulated on has to be less than 0.5. That ratio, as I show up on the board here, is defined as 0.5 minus a constant times the frequency times the amplitude. Well, it's a pretty clear, pretty straightforward equation. If you subtract anything from 0.5, you're going to be under 0.5. So it's actually a regulation that we can't possibly fail. So we thought that probably wasn't fair, and we should probably have a more stringent blasting standard. So what we're proposing is actually to base it off of the state limit. So the state doesn't have an equation, they have this chart here. And this is what's called the Z curve. And there's 2 axes. So the x-axis, which is the one on the bottom, has frequency. And frequency goes from low to high as you go to the right. And a good frequency from a vibration is high. So you want the way that that wave travels through the ground and through a structure to be very high, because that's actually gentle on the structure and gentle on people and their perception. On the vertical axis, you have particle velocity, which is the size of that wave. And then, of course, that's different. We want that to be low. So a very good blast has a lot of data points that live down and to the right of that Z curve. Where the state line came from, which is the blue line here, that was actually based on the United States Bureau of Mines did a study several decades ago where they built lots of different types of structures and then blasted progressively closer to them. They used that data to create formulas to figure out what types of vibrations impact and then harm structures. And they figured out that it was really related to the frequency and to the peak particle velocity. So if you had very low frequencies and very high velocities, then you had the potential for structural damage. And what they did was they actually built this blue line here, the Z curve, to be well below where they experienced any damage from vibrations. What we're proposing tonight is something we're calling the Lisbon limit. And this is based on what we do currently across the street in the village of Sussex. So we negotiated this with the village to be even more conservative than the state limit. So we're proposing that 90% of the data points on every one of our blasts must live below this yellow line, which is quite a bit even below the state limit. I do have quite a few slides if you guys want to get into the nitty gritty to kind of explain the math here. But we also went and got some third-party opinions on this. So if you want to go to the next slide. At the request of town staff, they asked other parties and they asked us to sort of recruit other parties to analyze this that weren't from Land and Stone. So we went to Dave Verizon, who works for the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services, and he is specifically deals with the mine and explosives program. And you guys have in your packet and staff has here, Dave's recommendation to go away from the energy formula, because like we said before, it's a formula that actually doesn't make sense in the real world. And he said the state regulation is plenty to keep everybody more than safe. We then hired a firm in Illinois that specializes just in seismograph and seismograph results. And they did a report that you guys also have in your packet saying that we should go away from the energy ratio and towards the state limit. And then finally, your planner Foth had a chance to review this as well, and they concurred as well in their planning report. So I'm actually going to hold my comments here before I go on to the next topic.
I don't have a lot to add. Based on what Hans stated, I think the most important thing to reiterate is just that we did receive feedback from the state that the current town codes are not ideal, and that the direction that we're heading is what they are recommending as far as what's being proposed by Land and Stone Products. And I agree with what's being proposed. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Mr. Chairman, could our planner please maybe give a little bit of background, because there are a lot of people here tonight. This is an ordinance amendment. We have a current ordinance,
Correct.
and it's an ordinance amendment. It's a text amendment, which we don't see often. We usually see map amendments.
Correct.
And could you just tell us what section it is? As the
Sure.
ordinance hasn't been drafted yet, that would be, you know, right now we just have a proposal. We have their petition and your comments, correct?
Correct. So the, correct, this is a text amendment to the Lisbon Code of Ordinances. This is not within the zoning code. This is section 33.04 blasting procedures and controls. And the proposed amendments are to language at 1A and B, and the applicant has provided and both outlined in our staff report to the Plan Commission those proposed changes. Some language is being striked and some language is being added. And the net result is that the old way of doing the measuring would go away, and this would bring the town in line with the state standards and the new Lisbon standard, as Hans pointed out, which is even more stringent.
Okay.
And as a text amendment, just like with a map amendment, there's a public hearing requirement.
All right. Anything else from staff on this? Right, we'll have you go to public hearing B number 2 then, which is request by applicant Hans Dawson from Land and Stone Products Inc. for amendments to the town's zoning code in particular, but not limited to sections 4, parent H, parent 25, parent H, and IV regarding conditional use exceptions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so one of the things we looked at when we tried to define what our relationship between our operation and the town would look like is what do kind of the final limits of this quarry look like? When we were going through those maps, we found a couple of odd bumps that we were hoping to reconcile so that we don't have to do this process again and again and again. So specifically, if you want to go to the next site, Nate, next slide. I do want to call out that the code requires a 200-foot setback. We're voluntarily going to a 250-foot setback around this entire area that we're proposing to modify our blasting limits. But if you'll notice on the lower left-hand side slide, you'll see these little carve-outs. So these are carve-outs around properties that we don't own, but we would like to own within the next 10, 20 years or so. And what this allows you guys to do, this particular text amendment, is actually to have the ability to give us the potential, if we were to purchase those properties, to then square off those lines similar to the lower right. So I believe our next slide, Nate, has a zoom in of that. It's basically these little red areas that would be kind of odd shapes. So the idea is we want to really define the final limits of the quarry this evening. And this gives you guys a chance via this text amendment to say, if we were to acquire those properties, those setbacks would then drop, we'd square off the line, then we don't have to do the process multiple times. Specifically, if we want to go to the next slide, I guess I'll ask staff, would you like me to go through this, or did you want to go through the language on your end? Or
It's your presentation, it's your amendment, please
okay,
continue.
sure. All right, so the text that we're going to be referring to, the first text, which is going to stay, This is in chapter 11, section 4, sub H 25E. No part of the quarrying operation shall be permitted closer than 200 feet, nor shall any access road, parking area, or office building be located closer than 50 feet to any property line, except with the written consent of the owner of adjoining property, or except where said line is abutting a Q1 or M2 district, or abutting an existing quarry operation. But in no case shall such operation be closer than 20 feet to any property line, except by agreement between abutting quarry operations, or be in conflict with the provisions of section 3, sub C, sub 5, relating to the preservation of topography. Go to the next slide. That's going to stay in. This next slide is a modifier to that. So within the ordinances, there's actually a modification to some of these ordinances. So this is one of those modifiers. In a Q1 or M2 district, the Plan Commission may, consistent with the intent of these regulations, modify the provisions relative to permitted hours of operation. And in the event, and this is where we're proposing, the quarry operator and or its related entity own the immediately adjoining parcels, and special conditions would justify such a modification, may permit a reduction or elimination of the required setbacks or offsets. So basically, this would allow us to draw that blue line straight. And this is something that our council and town council had to figure out how to allow us to accomplish that in one package here. And I think that's all I have, yeah, on this one. Yep. So.
Warren?
In the report to the Plan Commission, both identified that more information was requested, having come into this project at the tail end, which was actually the submittal. I mean, obviously there's meetings with staff prior to a submittal to provide the background data and figure out the direction that is going to need to be taken as far as the due diligence, what applications are going to need to be submitted. Both having not been involved in that, I didn't have all of the background information. The map that Hans just presented is particularly helpful to know what specifically is in mind that the quarry would like to be able to, in the future, possibly, as Hans stated, smooth out those lines on property that they intend to acquire but don't own presently, and that wouldn't necessarily be part of the quarrying operation, but land that they own adjacent to their operations. And having all of this information, I don't have any issue with the proposed amendment as presented.
Mr. Dawson, would you have your counsel, he prepared an email for us. Can he go through that email to me? You all should have copies of it, but I think it should make sure, because we've got so many paperwork. I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you need a copy, we've got a copy here we can give you, but.
I think I remember it. I'm Rick Donner. I'm an attorney for Lamb and Stone Reinhardt. So I think the distinction that the Mr. Sumalt was making in his original comments or discussions with us was that perhaps the current ordinance allowed Lamb and Stone to do what they wanted to do, which is, as Hans described, to square off those corners of the operation. And actually, in looking at it closer, we thought that that wasn't true, because the ability to square off or to move the setback to what is 20 feet of the adjacent property would require that both properties be quarry operations. And it's not Lamb and Stone's intention to rezone those properties that they create. It's not going to expand its quarry operations into the adjacent properties that it would buy. It's going to be that new line that's going to be straightened out will be the boundary for the quarry. And so that those residential properties will be a natural buffer, if you will, between the quarry operation and the remainder of the town. And so that was the sort of general nature of my email, and I'm happy at any time to answer any questions. Does that work, Tom?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to find the email and make sure they reviewed it, because it was just distributed tonight. Mr. Dawson, would you also explain, I think it was one of your slides, and I don't know if you can go back to it. It stated it, but I don't know that you put into the record that it would, this text amendment only allows for the potentiality. It doesn't create the situation. And could you explain that?
Sure. Yeah. So it would, what we're proposing tonight is a site plan of operation. Part of that is the blue line that was on my slide. I don't know, Lisa, if you're able to give Nate the control back. Okay, perfect. And this text amendment in combination with our proposed site plan would allow, if we were to purchase those properties, rather than go through this entire process again, that would be contemplated tonight. So this would basically say, you know, we are really hoping to define the terminal extent of the quarry with this. You know, we think this will be kind of defining our relationship going forward. So this would allow you in this to, if we were to purchase those properties, the red would sort of go away and those blue lines would get squared off. But if we don't purchase those properties, those shapes would stay as is and they would be kind of rounded off.
You have to be at the mic, unfortunately, because we do have people on
Sorry.
Zoom. Thank you, Council.
Sorry, just the reason why it would stay the same is that because they wouldn't be rezoning, we wouldn't have to come back and rezone those residential properties to quarry, to Q1. So they don't want to do that. They want to leave those residential, so there wouldn't be any, you know, obviously any question that there wouldn't be quarrying on those properties.
Okay. Anything else from staff?
Nope, nothing else from staff.
All right, we'll move to public hearing number 3, request by the applicant Hans Dawson and Land and Stone Products Inc. to rezone the property located at North 52, West 22504 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.986.001, and a vacant parcel of the Lisbon Road known as LSBT 0285.982.003 from the A10 Agricultural Zoning District to the Q1 Quarrying Zoning District. The property located at North 52 West 22444 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.982 from the A5 Mini Farm Zoning District to the Q1 Quarry Zoning District, and the property is located at North 53 West 22490 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.983.001, North 52 West 22508 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.984, and North 52 West 22500 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.985 from the R1 Suburban Single Family Residential Zoning District to the Q1 Quarrying Zoning District, noting that no changes are proposed to areas under Waukesha County Shoreland Zoning Authority.
Thanks. So to tie into that, if you want to hit the next slide. So I want to give a little bit of background to the areas we're discussing. First, I want to just call out the shaded area. So everything that is shaded is currently in the village of Sussex. So all that is not really included. Areas 1 and 2, these are not parcels. Again, these are just areas we called out for clarification. Those are part of what we call the Halquist Quarry or the West Quarry, north and south of Lisbon Road. And none of those are part of the rezone application. Those are currently zoned quarrying and extraction. The area we're discussing is only area 3, which is part of that Vulcan land package on the east side of Highway F. So if you go to the next slide, Nate. Currently, the zoning is, as Joe mentioned, it's a variety of things. There's some agricultural, there's some mini farm, and there's some residential, and you can see by the different colors, there's a variety of different things. And what we're applying for tonight is actually to conform to the land use plan that you guys are looking to adopt. So in your proposed land use plan for 2035, this entire area is listed as extractive, and our application tonight is to conform with the land use plan. So specifically, if you go to our next slide, we call out in your packet, and I'm not going to read every legal description, but all these different parcels, we enumerate where they're going from and to zoning. So for example, A10 to Q1, A5 to Q1, and R1 to Q1. And all of those legal descriptions are in your tab A in your binder. And then demonstrating that we own those parcels, which is part of the application, is in Exhibit J, which is all the land deeds. So that covers some of the legal beagle side of it. But as you guys are contemplating this, I do want to mention that a quarry being an extractive use Extractive is a long-term use in the case of these operations, but it also it does have a terminal use, because when all the rock has been depleted, and again, these are the final shapes for these quarries, they do need to be turned into something else. And our reclamation plans we have on file with the county and the village of Sussex show that this is going to be a beautiful suite of lakes in this part of the town. And while it might be a little while, this is the terminal use for the site. So when it's all done, somebody who's in my shoes will then ask to rezone this to whatever makes the most sense, and who's ever in your shoes will decide whether it's going to be residential or commercial or whatever makes most sense next to these big lakes. But in particular, the area we're hoping to rezone, if you want to pull up the next slide, this is looking towards that area. So of course, everyone will have to decide at that time what makes the most sense. But this is on our quarry property. This would be a bird's eye view looking east. And what that area, that basically the bulk of the area here is what's in the rezoning parcel. So in the background would be a large vegetated berms, and then of course a lake filling in the gap, and then whatever else future us decides to do with that parcel, they can do. But it's a pretty neat end use for these quarries to know that they have such a beautiful terminal use. So that's all I had on the rezoning section.
So the first thing I want to touch on regarding the request for the rezoning, approximately 86 acres here encompassing the proposed rezoning. The comprehensive development plan for the town currently designates the land use for this area as mixed use. Per state statute, the zoning and the land use need to work together. And there's a recent comp plan amendment prepared for the town by FOTH that includes, among many other changes, a proposed future land use amendment from mixed use to extractive for the lands encompassing the proposed rezoning. And there was a public information meeting which was held on October 6th, 2021 regarding the proposed comp plan amendments, including the one I just mentioned. And there's a public hearing scheduled on January 6th, 2022, with an anticipated date of adoption by the town board the 10th. The 10th is when it'll be before for a public hearing, possible adoption on the 24th, I believe. And that's important because that, should that go forward as proposed, the consistency requirement by the state for the zoning and the comp plan would be met. Obviously, the approval can't be solidified until that comp plan amendment is adopted by the town board. And that would be prior to this item, going before the town board itself. So that consistency requirement would be met should things go according to plan, as I mentioned. That's all I wanted to say about the rezoning.
Could we go back and explain the parcels a little bit? You sort of at the end said we own all of this land,
Sure.
but I want to make sure they're whole parcels and what maybe the boundaries would be, what you're proposing. I know that's more site plan, a plan of operation.
Sure.
We
Yeah,
have
you
that
want to pull up
opportunity.
the map, Nate? And John, are you thinking to kind of get into the parcel numbers or just to show it on the map?
It was one of the previous
This
earlier
previous
maps
slide.
that just showed. If you go back, we'll point out which one. It's unclear on the one on the east side whether those are whole parcels or not, if you know what I mean, if you could speak to that. I mean, the red line isn't definitive. I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, John. Yeah, now I get it. Yep. So within the square, you're going to see 3 shaded squares, the small ones. Nate, can you mouse over that? So those 3 are part of the 3. You go north of there, there's a big light green. It's that square. You go south of there, another light green. And then that dark green right there. So those are the areas specifically. Yeah, thanks, John. Because it's not everything inside of the red box. The red box is just highlighting the area of them. And then similar on this one, of course, the red box also does not define the parcels. It's just S4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. Just those parcels defined by that. Yeah, thank you.
In anticipation of questions that we might have, what is the proposed setback or side yard from those areas that are proposed to be rezoning in your site plan and plan of operation?
Yeah.
As long as we have this map up, maybe,
Yep.
I know you can't draw it, but maybe he can,
Yeah.
unless that's gonna come up
So
later as part of
we-
the site plan and plan of operation.
Yeah, yep. So the setbacks here were required by statute to be 200. We thought we would maybe go beyond that and be a little more restrictive on ourselves to voluntarily go to a 250-foot setback from any extraction. Of course, within that setback will be vegetated berms, which we think are a really great way to separate, some of the noise and other concerns, and does actually a really nice job doing that, especially taller berms that are vegetated really create a wonderful buffer. So that 250-foot area gives us a lot of setback to work with.
And maybe somebody didn't even realize that when you were showing this example
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
text amendment, it's
Yeah.
the same lands that you're proposing for rezoning.
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
So this
Yep.
is a much better example of showing what is being rezoned, and what the setbacks in
Yep.
those rezoning areas.
Yeah, that's a good point of clarification. So just because it's zoned a certain way doesn't mean every square foot of that parcel will be extraction. So once it's zoned, then you subtract the setbacks from it. So the whole box is, the red outline here, but of course the blue is the extraction. So there's actually some pretty healthy setbacks from those side yards.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
no, thank you.
If I could just add that the proposed rezoning is the Q1 quarrying district. And the Q1 quarrying district standards in the code are very specific about what's allowed in that district. And the quarrying operations that are present on the existing site and that are proposed on the additional lands are allowed as a conditional use in the Q1 quarrying district. And so as part of the due diligence of the request, in order to be able to get approval of the conditional use permit amendment and subsequent site plan and plan of operations, there has to be a rezoning to the Q1 quarrying district. That's why this application is before us.
All right. Anything else from Hans?
Not on that topic. Yeah.
Anything else from staff? All right. Then the fourth public hearing is a request by applicant Hans Dawson from Land and Stone Products, Inc. to amend the area of existing conditional use permit for a quarry in the Q1 quarrying zoning district to include the properties identified as tax keys LSBT 0285.986.001, LSBT 0285.982.003, LSBT 0285.982.982, LSBT 0285.983.002, LSBT 0285.984, and LSBT 0285.985.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so this is the one, Nate, if you want to take over. This public hearing will cover the conditional use permit amendment, the site plan, and the plan of operation. And this has a lot of specific things I have to cover, so I hope you all took your coffee, but we'll get through this together. So just to bring this map back up, just a refresher now. So again, the shaded area is in the village of Sussex, and that already has a lot of the regulations we're discussing or we're proposing tonight. But then the things at this time, so the site plan, plan of operation, that would be for areas 1, 2, and 3. So this is actually all the quarry land that is in the town of Lisbon currently. So what we'll do is I got to go through as part of the application, sorry, there's a number of boxes we had to check. So I'm going to read through all these. And then if there are any concerns or if staff wants to go in, we can actually dive in, but I'm not going to read you the whole binder. I'll just tell you what's in the binder. So Exhibit S has our mining sequence, which is required to have a full and adequate description of all phases of the mining operation. We also have to describe the type of machinery and equipment which might be necessary to carry on our operation. And that exists in our plan of operation, our Exhibit F, which is our outdoor usage plan. The plan of operation, just for some reference, lives in the front of your binder. And then all of these lettered exhibits live under the tabs, just in case you guys wanted to check that out. If we're going to be washing sand and gravel and stone in our case, and where there's needed water, we need to describe that. That lives in the cover letter, the plan of operation, and in exhibits K, L, M, N, O, and P, where we provide our substantial evidence of that. Going to go to the next slide. We also have to provide legal descriptions, which live in exhibit A, and a map with showing the location and indications of all of our access roads, existing and proposed, access to public highways, et cetera. That's in exhibit B, and actually I'm going to go over the site plan together in a few slides because that's probably the best description of what's going on. Next, we have a topographic map, which is part of our submission to describe the entire area. That's on exhibit Q. And then a restoration plan, which is required actually by state law. And in the case of Lisbon, the reclamation plans in this town are administered by Waukesha County. So our plans are on file with you guys, but they're actually administered and our financial assurance is with Waukesha County. So they live as exhibits H and J in your packet. And then next we had to have an accurate map or site plan describing a number of different features. So abutting public and private streets, which is exhibit B, a lighting plan, which is exhibit D, the location, message dimensions, et cetera, of all signs, which is in exhibit E, all of our driveways, street access and parking, which is exhibit G, grading plan showing existing and finished grades and landscape plans, which is exhibits H and I, the location of our sanitary sewer, water main services, et cetera, and stormwater detention and stormwater management plan, which are exhibits N, O, and P. Again, this plan will have to show topographic data, which is there in exhibit Q. The surrounding land uses and zoning, which is exhibit T. And then all the structures on our properties for entrances, walkways, landscaping, dumpsters, and screening, et cetera. That's exhibit U. And then I just want to call out within the plan of operation itself, there are some, I think, significant differences between what the relationship was under the Halquist negotiated plan in the early 90s and what we're proposing tonight that we think are all more restrictive. So the first, which we've already covered, is more stringent blasting standards. The second is a mandatory pre-blast call list. So this is where any of our neighbors can request to be notified ahead of a blast, and then we have to log that and then submit that to the town as requested. We also introduced the concept of stockpile height limits. A couple of the piles are grandfathered in, but when they go away, they'll all have to be below the sight line of the berms so that our operation will become progressively more invisible to the surrounding area. We've added a much more robust well guarantee. In the prior plan, there was a well guarantee, but it was quite short. It was pretty vague and it was just a sentence. We've got a pretty extensive program for dealing with any well issue should one come up. We've also modernized the liability limits because the ones that were negotiated in the 90s don't really apply for a 2022 world. So we've increased those limits substantially. And then we've added a number of aesthetic standards, specifically adding requirements for more and vegetated berms that'll get prairie grasses and trees and the like on them. So those are things that all live within inside of the plan of operation, which again is one of the first documents. And then last, I would like to go over as part of this, the site plan. It's a little small even on this big screen, but it is a fairly big site. But the things I want to call out are the red line, which defines the property that we own. The blue line, which again, we're describing will be the final extraction limits of our quarries. And then some buffer features I want to call out. About half of these berms exist. So I don't know, Nate, if you want to cursor along with me here. On the north side of our Sussex quarry, that's all shaded. All of those berms were built in the last 10 years. We've vegetated those and added trees and they're growing nicely. As you come around to the east, which is some of the newer lands we're considering, we're hoping to wrap this area in vegetated berms before we ever get to mining there. And that's actually called out specifically in our sequences that'll be built before any extraction happens. We then will be adding berms on the south side of that property along Highway K. And then as we just work our way further west into the Halquist quarry, on the north side of Highway K, all of those berms are basically built with the exception that we'll be adding a little bit of berms on the very south side along Highway K. I don't know if you want to mouse that over, Nate, where our office is, sorry, where our current driving out. Yeah, those will be modifying just a little bit. We'll actually be adding some more screening berms in that area. If you go to the south side of the road where you were before, we're going to be actually lengthening that screening berm going to the west and moving it a little bit to the north. And then on the far west side, we're going to be adding another screening berm for the remaining neighbors that are over there. And then on the south and east side of the property, those berms already exist. So we'll be basically maintaining all the existing berms and only adding to them. And then we hope to be progressively invisible and living within inside of our boundaries going forward. And then regarding this, I did have a few other statements I wanted to say about this. We have submitted what we believe are complete applications. As I mentioned before, all those little things, all those tabs, that is our provision of substantial evidence that we meet the standards and conditions of Lisbon's ordinances. And then we've also had a chance to review the planner's report, and we agree with all the conditions in that report, and we're willing to live by those going forward. So, thanks again for your time, guys.
Lauren?
As Hans indicated, the submittal was substantial, and I'd like to thank him for the level of detail and thought that was put into it. The way that the staff report is broken out for this conditional use permit portion is there are specific conditional use considerations per section 4H25 of the zoning ordinance. Those get into procedure for action on application and other requirements by the town board, general requirements, and then road setback requirements, offset requirements, operational requirements. And I've gone through and outlined where in the submittal by the petitioner, the operational requirements have been addressed. And those are underlined under those particular items. I do want to point out that under the operational requirements, which is letter F, this would be beginning on page 5 of Vought's staff review. You turn the page to page 6 at VIII, it goes into hours of operations. I just want to point out that quarrying operations shall not begin before the hour of 6 a.m. and shall not continue after the hour of 6 p.m. unless previously authorized by the town board. The petitioner is requesting hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays, which could be approved, and no operations taking place on Sundays or legal holidays. So the request would be consistent with the code if approved by the town board after recommendation from the Plan Commission. There are also general conditional use considerations from the code, section 4D, which are listed for the Plan Commission's consideration. And obviously state statute Act 67, we're going through this process and evidence is being provided to be consistent with the state statute requirements. And the plan of operation is really a function of the conditional use permit process. We're looking at that as part of that application. So as the conditional use permit is being requested to be amended to add the additional lands into the operation, which are the lands that are being proposed for the rezoning on the east side of the Sussex operations, we're looking at the plan of operation as well. And when we get into the plan of operation, we're looking at what are the uses and activities going to be? How many employees do you have? What are your hours of operation? And then we're looking at things like parking, lighting, signage, stormwater and erosion control, and traffic circulation and access. And we have substantial evidence submitted by the petitioners speaking to all of those items. I do believe this was a complete submittal, and Voght has, I'd say, 4 specific conditions relating to the CUP in the staff review, and then subsequent general conditions that would be included really in any conditional use permit before this body.
All right. Anything else?
I would just add that the conditional use approval excludes those portions of the property located in the village of Sussex. So that would be Land and Stone Products, existing operations in Sussex. It's actually very helpful to see those as part of the overall site plan and plan of operation, because obviously it's nice to know that things like the berm and the setbacks continue from what is that operation into what could be the proposed expansion area. So that was very helpful, but just for clarification, we're sticking to the review and the approval are sticking to the parts that are in the town. And I'm open to answer any questions as those come.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
That's it for now. Yeah,
All right.
thanks a lot for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing for public comments. We'll have you step up to the podium, state your name and address. I would ask that you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. I've not historically shut people down, but we all have to work in the morning, so really appreciate it if you would try to do that. If somebody has already stated your comments, you could say, I reiterate this comment. We don't have to go through the entire process again, please. We will have some people on Zoom. I do have some letters also to read, but we'll open it up with the public first. Do we have a list of anyone? No. So who would like to go first? Good evening, everyone. You need to step up here.
Hi, my name is Mark Schmidt. I apologize to all the members tonight. 3 minutes is not enough time for me to put a PowerPoint together. Obviously, the letter I received at Christmas, I had limited preparation, so what you're going to get from me is my words tonight from the heart. I provided the copies of what I'm going to speak to all the members. So again, my name is Mark Schmidt, third generation, 53-year resident in the town of Lisbon and Sussex. My current home, I lived in it for 22 years. My wife Julie and I built the home. It's approximately a 5-acre parcel at around 4.76 about to the center of Town Line Road. It's the center of the longest 3 properties in the middle of the, what would be a blue line, I guess you'd refer to it. I built the home on that property. It's been a labor of love for me. Property is located west 220 N5259 Town Line Road. My message tonight, the Lisbon Planning Commission and the town board, is for my children, Nicholas, who's with me tonight, Samantha, who's not, and that's the other letter that was provided for my wife. It'll explain the reason she has autism. So it's in the letter that my wife provided. So she's not here, and my wife Julie, who's down here on the end tonight. I would like to express our vehement opposition to all requested zoning changes requested by Hans Dawson, Land and Stone Products Incorporated, and all requested changes to blasting criteria measurements that will directly result in item D, public hearing number 4, specifically a conditional use permit that will allow the Sussex Quarry to devour a large tract of developable farmland that directly abuts the west side of my property. So it's about a 206-foot strip at the back of my property that is a blue line, a berm, whatever you'd like to call it on that. I've seen none of this to this point. So I had to put this together without any of this information. Favorable vote on these matters by this commission and subsequently by the town board constitutes a town sanctioning of increased noise, truck traffic, dust, well damage, residential structural damage, rainwater drainage issue, and a 1/3 reduction in property value to all the surrounding residential properties proposed in this quarry expansion. I believe it's somewhere in the number of about 34 that are within the town boundary, not to include Menominee Falls, as Taylor's Woods, and some of the other adjacent properties as its quarry moves within a 1-mile radius of those properties. My family has willingly paid high property tax in the town of Lisbon. I do not have a problem with the town taxes that I pay. The land values have increased over time. I do not understand, though, the idea of high taxation by the town that would willingly make a decision to misrepresent its residents. Such action is complete abandonment of my family and my residential neighbors by local government. Regardless, folks, of what you decide, I'm more than willing to invite any of you, whatever way you vote on this thing, to come out to my property and walk on it with me. I also think a visit to the quarry would be in order. I think that would be a good thing to do. Go to the Sussex Quarry that's directly behind this development. Each commission and board member will bear an individual burden based on your recommendations. And I wish for you to have a clear mental picture of the long-term ramifications of these zoning changes and amendments to our town. In 10 to 20 years, which I didn't know what the proposal was, let's say 2 years now, we'll make it 2 years. when you drive by the southeast corner of our wonderful community, you need to be prepared to look out your car window and say to yourself, I did that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are you asking, since you read most of the letters, sir, that the letter be read into the record also?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You want me to, just to be clear, I'm going to physically read your letter again, is what he's asking. Okay, I just want to be clear.
But your wife's letter has to be read. I mean, your wife's letter has to be read unless she's going to speak.
Not my wife's fault.
Those are the only two we have. right?
Okay,
Written up.
I've got a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
Right, I just wanted to make sure we understood each other. Okay, excellent.
Hello, my name is Brian Endress. I live at S33W31305 Canyon View Drive in the town of Genesee, actually. I'm a vice president of Payne and Dolan, and I actually manage our mining operations. And I'm only here actually to speak to the character of the Dawson family, which I know is probably a unique person to be speaking here. But I've known all three generations, worked with all three generations. And these are sensitive topics, and I've been through many of these myself with our operations. And what I can tell you and anyone in this room is that if the Dawsons commit to something, their word is good. They're one of the last that, if no offense to any attorneys in the room, if I didn't have to have attorneys, I could actually do a handshake agreement with them and they would hold up their end of the bargain. So, that being said, there's a lot of information, and I won't wade into any of that, but I can speak from 20 years of experience that if they say they're going to do something, if they say they're going to work with someone, if they say that they're interested in helping the community, it is not just lip service. I have seen it in action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I am Carl Johnson, Vice President of Stark Pavement Corporation. We operate a asphalt mixing facility at North 51 West 23995 Lisbon Road in the town of Lisbon. It's nice to be up here just as a public hearing member and not as an applicant having to fight for something. So thank you for listening. But I am here to also support the Dawson's application. I have to say, if any of you have driven on a freeway in southeastern Wisconsin, chances are you've driven over our asphalt that we've produced. And what you probably don't know is about 80% of that is likely made up of aggregates that came out of the quarries that we're talking about today. So a lot of the roads we drive on and depend on to get to and from work, home, church, these are aggregates that are produced in these quarries. So we depend on these things to go about our daily lives. And not only that, our employees, over 100 people depend on having a steady, reliable source of quality aggregates, to give them a job to put food on their tables every day. So I fully support this application. And I must also add that, as the previous speaker said, I don't think you'll find a more talented and respectable group of mining enthusiasts in this area. You'd have to look awful hard. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Janowski. I live on West 220, North 5329 Town Line Road, which is right on the border of Section 3 that Mr. Dawson has put up for rezoning and more mining. I want to thank you for a great presentation. I also want to thank my neighbor Mark for an eloquent letter. I can't disagree with him on any of his points. I do have some concerns. Living here for 23 years, had some significant damages to wells, septic. I guess my question is, knowing that progress is probably going to be made, how do we access your robust plan, and what does it all include? Is it only wells? things like that. Is this information that we will, freely have access to? And what's the plan for the culverts that you have on your map? Currently, the one you have runs right through the middle of my house. We need more clarification on that. And when do you anticipate the project to begin? And terminal use?
And the way this happens is they write down the questions, and then after we take a break, after everyone's spoken, then they come up and answer the question. You'll get an opportunity to ask for further questions as time allows.
Okay.
But we don't go back and forth
Gotcha.
at the moment.
All right,
But
thank you.
Thank you. I think we wrote them all down, and they're taking notes, and they'll get an opportunity. And our staff is also writing them down.
My name is Wayne Johnson. West 232, North 9121 Wooded Ridge Trail. I've known the Dawson family for 50 years. I've done business with Land & Stone for 50 years. As an adjacent property owner at their land and operation, I've had an excellent relationship with Land & Stone and the Dawsons. I can't extend enough the feelings I have towards how they act as a civic-minded family and provide a service to the Wisconsin, Southeast Wisconsin area like they do. I think that they are the perfect fit to run what is being contemplated with the old Vulcan and Hellquist quarries. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's, we have Jill on her iPad. Let's take her quick.
Jill's iPad on Zoom.
Jill Pickler, West 246 North 8870 LD Lane, Lisbon, Wisconsin. I have a property at North 54 West 22180 Bonnie Lane. My concern would be is a guarantee of well protection. We've had our well go bad once already. And that would be one of my main concerns is the closer they come to our property, are we going to be protected? And if so, what do we have or what would be shown for this?
Thank you, Jill.
Yep.
All right, we'll take one more comment and we'll have the applicant answer a few of these, or what's been asked so far.
Yeah, I'm James Hubble. I live in front of Alex and just the house down from
Could you state your address?
Mark. W220 N5325 Town Line Road. I've lived in that home for, oh gosh, 25 years now. And I just want to give some of my experiences with the quarry companies. Now, most of our experience has been with other companies, and I'm not pointing a bad finger at Land & Stone Products per se, but I will tell you, as a resident there for so long, my experience has not been very good. My well also went out in one day. All of a sudden, the water level in my well dropped 40 feet in one day. And I ended up having to replace that well. I came before this board with a complaint about that situation. And it was, I don't know if it was Hallquist or Vulcan at the time. I can't remember. It was one of the two. I got the cold shoulder. Nobody did a dang thing about it. Nobody cared. I ended up having to put a 240-foot well in at $45,000 it cost me. Nobody cared. I didn't get any response from the town or from the quarry companies. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying that's what Land & Stone Products is going to do, but that was my experience. The other thing is quarry operation hours. I don't believe that they're complying with quarry operation hours. Number two, the dust. My house has limestone dust on it, on the face constantly. When it rains sometimes and the wind's blowing the right direction, it actually, you can almost see the rainwater from the dust. it's a problem. Now, moving all that quarry operation closer is gonna be even worse. Not to mention the fact, during the week, y'all should come to my house when the blasting starts. I lived in California. I was in the Northridge earthquake. All right. Now, I'm not saying this is the Northridge earthquake, but we've had guests at our home go to panic that there's an earthquake going on. So they can put up their graphs and put up their, limits and all this and all that, but until you feel it, until you know what's going on, and you see all the cracks in your house from the house shaking, okay? And then you're gonna propose moving closer and change the limits. I don't know what that means. I'm not a scientist, but it seems like it's opening up the door. So again, I want to be a good neighbor. I understand the general public benefit of your operations and what it does. I was in construction. I am in construction. I know it's a necessary resource. But I'm just putting these concerns out there because they're very real. I also want to add one more thing for this board. My tax bill went up $475 this year, 1 year. 1 year.
This is the plan commission, just so you know.
Well, I'm
not
just
the-
saying. So the assessor, they don't know about all this going on. They're not lowering my property value, they're raising it. That's all I got.
All right, I'm going to suspend comments at that point, have the applicant address these comments.
Thanks, everyone, for the comments. I'll just say generally for the people that have supported us, certainly thanks, but I'll probably address the bulk of my comments to the concerns about the quarry. So I think one of the things that were in a couple of these was the concern about wells. And we totally get it, because if you don't have reliable, clean water, obviously the quality of life is not what you expect with the biggest investment in your life, which is your home. And I'll tell you that Land and Stone products, beyond all the stuff we put into our language here, we don't need a well guarantee because we take care of it. Nate and myself and prior employees, we rush over immediately, we figure it out, and if there's an issue, we tackle it. So for the bulk of the calls, they are equipment related, right? So there's a pump, a pressure tank, a pipe or whatever. But if it has anything to do with a lower water level, we have for multiple generations now, taken care of it at no cost to any homeowner and absolutely no fuss. We don't put up any sort of a concern because we want to get the person back in water immediately. These things don't come our way very often, but when we do, we react very strongly. But if for some reason we dug our heels in, you guys have some pretty extensive language in the plan of operation ahead of you. It talks about the money we're going to keep on file. It talks about the process of getting out there and analyzing what's going on. We just will not leave you high and dry. The one caveat that I do want to say is wells go bad for a variety of reasons in our region, but we basically might have an impact on the water level itself. Quite a few of our neighbors have more concerns than that related to the bacteria in their water. And that's something that we don't cause. That's actually a surface phenomenon from leaky septics and sewers and that sort of thing that leaches into the water. So when we cover wells, we cover water quantity, not the bacteria load. So to our neighbors that have had those concerns with prior owners, I'm just terribly sorry. But our family, we will absolutely cover all that, and it's enumerated and guaranteed in our plan of operation. Next, I'd like to talk about, let's jump and let's cover the culverts first. So these are the 3 red culverts. And we put these in because we studied the topography all along the eastern side of our property. And there are 3 areas where the water actually collects and then right now migrates east onto the farm field. And those are, they're blue on this map and they're red on another one. They're a little bit exaggerated in length. Of course, we wouldn't go into our neighbor's property. We would build that all in our property, but this is just to depict where those topographic features are. Because when we were going to build the berm, we did not want to make a pool in anybody's yard. So any water that flows from our neighbors to the east will continue to flow off of their property, so there won't be any backup. In the level of a site plan, this is of course not an engineering drawing, so it doesn't have the exact, it's a little different than an engineering drawing. This is a site plan, but it is contemplated, and we will not flood out any of our neighbors. I think I'd like to talk about blasting next. And Nate, why don't we go back to the Z curve? Yeah, we'll go back to the basic Z curve. And
Can we wait, both the
Surely.
planner and I saying, I think you gotta walk us through the berm and the culvert a little bit more,
Surely,
the stormwater.
surely.
You sort of, for somebody who doesn't live it every day, I'm
Yeah.
not sure that when I leaned over to Orin and he shook his head like, I didn't quite get it either, and
Okay.
we're experts on this.
Okay.
I'd like a little more detail if we may.
Sure,
please.
sure. So for both county data and the drone flights that we have extremely good accuracy of the topography of our quarries and of the surrounding areas. And that's how we do our production planning. And so we've studied in detail the topography of this side of our quarry. And when you study that, you'll notice where the water flows naturally. So out of that study come the natural depressions and natural water flows that come out of this. So based upon that, we know where the water is going to migrate off of our neighbor's property. And then we don't want to have that water pool in their property. So that's where the engineered solution, if a berm has to be installed, is a culvert. And we've actually done this several times before. We just built one over in our Lannon quarry to do the exact same thing for a neighbor. So the water pools, we actually carve a little depression so the pipe can set in there, so there's actually adequate flow to get through it. And then we size the pipe based upon the expected water load for the area. So again, like I said, we haven't gotten the engineered dimensions yet. That will happen when we move to construction. But the main thing here is we didn't want anyone to think that we didn't consider water flow, because obviously when you're looking at proposing a berm, you wouldn't want to back anything up onto any neighbor's property. I don't know, Attorney Macy, if you think that.
I think that's better. And so if they have questions, they'll ask you later, but
Okay.
you had to explain that you're gonna build a berm and the berm would have blocked the water and you gotta figure a way to
Yeah.
keep the natural water flowing.
Yeah, I just want to interject that the Waukesha County Department of Land Resources would have to approve an erosion control and stormwater management plan, including a stormwater maintenance agreement for your operation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep. And those are regulations we have to comply with in addition to, this site plan. Similar to any erosion control, there's a lot of these laws that exist you have to comply with. I do want to touch on blasting. And I think that there's two main concepts I want to discuss on blasting. The first is, I guess I want to reiterate again that the blasting limits we're proposing are substantially more stringent than what exists now. I think that it can't really be emphasized enough that we're actually trying to be good neighbors and hold ourselves to a higher standard. And beyond that, this science that this is based on, it's not just something that was discovered yesterday. This is something that was established in the 50s, and it's been applicable in the entire United States. And there's been literally millions of blasts that have been monitored, and then neighbors all over the country that this is based upon. And their goal with this is structural safety. So they made this map to keep structures safe so that vibrations wouldn't cause damage. Now, do structures that are near a quarry get damaged? Yes, just like any structure in Wisconsin, because as you have freeze and thaw, there's a lot of forces that push on these foundations and push on these structures. There's a variety of things that impact that, but damages from vibrations have a very particular cause, and we know where those live, and that's why this regulation exists. That said, you will feel, if you're close to a quarry, you will feel the blast. I'm not going to say that you won't. And they're going to be annoying if you don't like them to begin with. It's something that those of us that have been around it our whole life, we don't even look up from our desks. But clearly, if it's something that's already on edge and it's something that you don't like, it's unpleasant. And that's why we actually score these internally to try to, we sort of have an internal goal to press these as far down to the right as possible, because we know as we get down to the right on this graph, they get more and more pleasing to our neighbors. So this is not just a regulation and it's not just words. We have really good people that are trying all the time to get these things more and more friendly. But I don't want to mislead anybody on the Plan Commission or our neighbors. You will notice a blast, but I can tell you for certain that that blast is safe. And that's been established for a very long time. And then I want to touch on, let me just make sure that regarding hours of operation, I guess I'd like to learn more about that. We definitely do. If anybody is working past 6, they're not putting it on their time card and charging me for it, but it's something that, or 8, I should say. So it's something that we do comply with. And if there's any concerns, please let me know right away. We'll talk with our operation managers right away, but it's something we do want to live with. Regarding, I think I want to touch on dust a little bit. Nate, can you pull up, we have a slide further down. We're a little bit of a different company in that we're very aggressive in attacking any issue we see. One of the things we do every year at our sites is we go and we do something called a neighbor stand down, where we actually analyze our operations from the perspective of our neighbors so that we can get ahead of issues that come up. And oftentimes they're known issues. So one of the things we identified several years ago is we wanted to be an industry leader in dust control. And so we designed a new plant at our land and quarry that really was state-of-the-art in dust control. And we're now applying those principles to these quarries that we just bought. So in the town of Lisbon, since we purchased the Helquist quarry, we've spent over $750,000 on various dust control measures, and we're keep picking at that. So we bought a new water truck. We installed and designed a custom wheel wash to scrub the tires clean so there's less track out or no track out on the roads. We've installed dust collectors on all of the crushers on our secondary plant, which are north of Highway K. We've continued to add and seal up, and a lot of the men in this room have worked on sealing up all of our conveyor transfer points. We're picking through those from the source of emission. We've actually covered our outdoor screens at this site. So some of them were in a building already, but the ones that weren't, we added covers to all of those to protect dust from not emitting out of those. And then we rebuilt and sealed our indoor screens as well to make sure that they're even more friendly. So we're continuing to attack this as or more aggressively than anybody else. And we're pretty proud of our record. We're going to continue to do this. As I mentioned here in this bullet point, we have over $1 million budgeted over the next 5 years across our company to keep doing this. We meet all the compliance now, but we want to exceed it because we really want to be an out of sight, out of mind neighbor. It's not lip service. It's something that we actively work on, we engineer around, and we design so that we are very friendly to our neighbors. And then the last thing I do want to touch on that I think I got from these is the sight lines. The land we have, Nate, if you want to go back to the east where we show the berms that are going to be proposed. Yeah, we'll go to that one. So on the right slide, one thing I do want to call out is that we're going to ring this entire property with a tall vegetated berm. So when you're driving by Lisbon Road, what you're actually going to see is a grassy hill that's vegetated with prairie grasses and trees. I think it's actually gonna be pretty awesome. And same thing, we do care a lot about our neighbors. I mean, I know that we have a huge land package. I don't talk to every neighbor, all the time, but we engineer our company to consider all of our neighbors' concerns. And that's why we want to wrap this entire property in a berm so that when they look out their backyard, they're actually going to see something similar. It'll look hopefully just like a kettle feature or a moraine feature where it's just a sloping hill that's covered up with grass and trees. And we hope that it's something that the berm in particular will be a net positive on the property values. And I think that's all I had for this section.
This is, staff may have a couple of updates. The gentleman who asked about the well, and the well guarantee, and Jill also, I apologize, I don't know Jill's last name. First, I'd ask the staff, for any of the residents who want to look at it, is the proposed well program guarantee online now currently that they can look at as part of all of the materials? You don't have to answer that now, but maybe by the time we close the public hearing, I just wanted an opportunity of where they could,
Yes,
where they could get it.
yes.
If it was part of their proposal,
Yep. It's in the plan of operation, which is actually the very first part of the binder.
Okay, so anyone can go online and look at the proposed well guarantee information. There was a question as to whether the well guarantee covered anything but other than wells, and I believe he mentioned his septic or mound system or something in that regard. So that was part of his question.
It's an issue that we haven't dealt with. I don't know if any of our team has dealt with a septic issue. Yeah, the actual system itself. So regarding the foundation, again, I'll go back to those blasting limits. Those were based on extensive studies to make sure that the blasting does not cause any of those foundational issues. So again, there's certainly a perception that around a quarry that if I have a crack, the quarry caused it. But I'll tell you, if you go to most homes in Wisconsin or anywhere where it freezes and thaws, you have the ground shifting, which the forces of that are well in excess of what a quarry vibration does. And again, that's something that if the town want to look into further, there are firms that can tell you in detail about that. But that's what those seismographs are for, is to make sure that we operate within that safe zone.
I believe there's a question, it was right at the end of his questions. I think he asked something about when would begin and when would this end.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
Thank
not
you,
sure,
John.
But I think
Yeah,
that was the question.
That's right. If you could go to that. Yeah, let's go through.
I think I knew what he meant.
Okay, so we have a series of slides here going through the mining sequence, which is our Exhibit S, which is in the packet that's also online. And because of the size of these land packages and the size of operation, the sequence works out that this is going to be far into the future. So if you look at the east side of the property here that we're discussing, up until 2040, we're going to be progressing basically deeper into the north, and then a tiny little bit within our current land in Sussex within the next 20 years. And then if you go to the next slide, Nate, so in the 20 to 40 year out range, so 2041 to 2060 is when we'll begin on the very upper benches in that land to the east. So that'll depend upon, of course, sales will be the main driver. The slower the sales, the slower it goes. The faster the sales, the faster that sequence will go. But our best guess now is that we won't be into that area for at least 20 years, just based on our mining sequence and the mine plans that we have. And then if you kind of keep toggling through, that one got kind of wonky, but when that updates, we'll be then working our way down in those benches starting in the 2060s. So again, we're 40 to 60 years out, and then we won't finish up quarrying there until about 2100, when we'll be down to the bottom, and then that'll all be finished off. So the way we're going to be quarrying that operation is within the permit, within the current limits for the next basically generation or two before we get into those lands on the far east. And it's just the mining sequence. I mean, even just practically, we wouldn't jump over to punch down and then work our way back, just because you wouldn't want to drive the trucks up and down. You know, you'd want to go through with a logical sequence so that you have the best haul to the crushers. So beyond just what I'm saying, what we're proposing is our sequence. There's a practical reason why it will take some time to get over there.
And when does the berming occur as part of that process?
Yep. So what we've submitted is at least 10 years before we get into that new area. So it would probably begin something 10 to 20 years out. Now, does that sound right? I think that's what we have in our proposal.
The berming.
The berming would, yeah. Because what we would want to do is we want to have that completely built, vegetated, and let the trees get going. Because berms in particular do a phenomenal job at blocking noise and some of the concerns from the quarry.
So that far eastern berm, about what
Yeah.
year range are you looking to have that berm built?
Something like 2030 to 2040, somewhere in that range.
Hans, I just wanted to reiterate hours of operation, because that was something that came up. what are your current hours of operation at the Sussex?
Yep.
Quarry.
At the Sussex Quarry right now, which again is the kind of to the right side here. That is 6 to 8 Monday through Friday, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, and then 6 to 4 Saturday, no Sundays, no legal holidays. And then across the street, it's 6 to 6 Monday through Friday, 6 to, I don't want to misspeak, but it's in the packet. Yeah, we bug out of there by noon, so we don't bump up against it anyway.
Sure. So what you're proposing is to standardize the hours similar to what you're currently doing in Sussex.
That's right.
Across the property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And practically, I guess I should add some practical considerations. These are the extreme boundaries of where you can drive, sort of drive the hours. But our goal for our crews is we want to get our guys to work 5 days a week, and we want them to be out of the gate at least by 5 o'clock so they can get home to their families. So one of the things we've also done since we've taken over this site is we've actually reduced our hours of crushing substantially. I don't know if you want to talk about that slide, Nate. But since we've taken over the site, we've reduced our hours of operation by over 25%. And we did that by really just good engineering. So we were able to get in, analyze the plant, and for the same amount of tons, we can run the plant harder. And the benefit to our guys and to the community is that our practical hours of operation have shrunk substantially. But we just wanted to have the flexibility in case a very unique job came up. We needed to run a couple of days or something, we could do that. But our goal is to actually keep compressing our hours.
And then could you just reiterate the difference between your hours of operation and your blasting hours? Because I know the plan of operation
thank you.
speaks
Yeah,
to blasting hours as well.
Yeah, blasting hours in the proposal are 11 p.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then of course, no weekends and no holidays. 11 a.m. Sorry, definitely not 11 p.m. Yeah.
Oh, you're sleeping.
Thanks for listening, Joe.
We all heard that one.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right.
That's all the questions I'd have. I know we go down the line and see if any of the other staff picked up anything else.
Any questions from the Plan Commission or the members of the board?
All right.
Add anything?
No.
Brian, Joe, Doug, Linda? Okay,
So we go back to the public.
Yep. So we'll reopen this up to the public.
Hello, my name is Don Breyer, and I just wanted to be a
State your
witness.
Name and address.
I'm sorry. My name is Don Breyer, and I live at W162 N11063 Cromwell Road in Germantown. And I'm an employee of Land and Stone. I just wanted to be a witness to the company that is before you today and the kind of people that work for them. I'm here to show my support for the passage of this permitting today. I have worked for Land and Stone for 30 plus years. In those years, they've provided me an opportunity to help me raise a family and have a career that I'm proud of. The same could be said for a lot of the guys and gals that are here tonight from Land and Stone. I've grown along with them like one of their family, and we've grown over the years, but we still are a family. And more we're connected to the communities that we are in. I think we work hard to be good neighbors by dedicating time and resources throughout the year to improve our relationship. Hans talked about some of it. I think that we're trying to bring a more positive impact to the communities we are in by reducing any negative impact we have on that. And we've done that by, among other things, having those neighborhood stand downs that he was talking about, where we do take employees from each site. I've been on these. Nate's been there, and whole groups of guys, and we go out into the neighborhoods where that are around us and actually see during production to see and hear the impact that our plants have on our neighbors. And then we come back and we come up with a plan to make things better. For example, like reducing noise by changing the types of backup alarms we use from a loud beep to a white noise alarm, and trying to reduce dust that goes off site by installing those dust suppression systems he was talking about on our plants. And we even have policies to shut down production on if needed on dry and windy days. We'll continue to work on a lot more of those kind of things, I think, and this company definitely cares about the people that work for them, and I think they also care about the communities that they are in. I think there's lots more stories like mine from other employees here at Land and Stone, from the men and women that are seated out here tonight. And I think okaying these permits would go a long way to help ensure that we can all continue to work for generations to come and to help build the communities that we live in. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Would like to go next?
Hello, my name is Matthew Matuzak. I'm a homeowner at North 54 West 22114 Bonnie Lane. I also represent my mother, who couldn't be here tonight, North 53 West 22115 Bonnie Lane. I have a couple concerns on top of the well concerns. I recently purchased this home, closed on it August 3rd. This home was abandoned for 13 years. I still have a conventional septic system that is a concrete tank 13 feet below the surface. I'm concerned for cracking and concerned that I'm gonna have to replace that in the near future. I'm also concerned that if we do run into a problem, if I were to run into my problem with the septic tank, where do I reach out for a response, or who do I go to in order to get some sort of action? And one more question is, are the hours of operation and blasting hours subject to change in the future? And if so, where would they go? And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne Pomeroy, N54 W22214, Bonnie Lane. I am one of the neighboring properties to the field. And 3 years ago, Christmas Eve, I woke up to no water. My dear friend and well guy, Ron, said, call Hans, he'll take care of everything. And he did. You guys took really good care of me. I had all the water I needed to take care of my animals and my family, me and my sister. And they were great. By my birthday, January 8th, I had my well and it was up and running. They had a couple setbacks. I think they hit a power main and other things that affected the neighbors, and the company was not real happy with the job that had happened, but not our problem. But these guys are good neighbors. This berm is not going to affect us for many years. And I support the rezoning. And I also think that a lot of my friends and neighbors also have concerns about everything we've talked about. But I think if you call Nate or Hans, they'll take your call, talk to your concerns. But if you don't call, they can't help you. So make sure you call. The Town of Lisbon Board has always been there for me as well to air grievances and talk about things. So if you don't talk, they can't answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Paul Kisslinger. I live on Squire Road in the town of Genesee. And I'm a partner at Robertson Ryan and Associates. We serve as the commercial risk managers for Land and Stone products. And we've done so for over 30 years. The history of Lannon is unbelievable, exemplary. They're top of their class when it comes to this type of operation. We insure over 40,000 businesses across the country. And I don't think we have another mining operation that even comes close to their safety record. We have never had to enter, or much less pay, for an incident where rock or other debris from any Land and Stone facility was thrown from their property to another property. They consistently rate as one of the safest organizations in the country when compared to the safety ratings of companies in their industry. Lannon does not have one open recommendation from any of their risk insurance carriers, indicating that when an issue needs attention or resolution, they are very quick and accurate in their response. An indication is their experience modification rating, or EMR, is generated by the Wisconsin Workers' Compensation Rating Bureau, which currently stands at 0.84.
which means they consistently have significantly less injuries on the job than what is expected for an organization of their size and industry. Another industry factor is called the DART rating, which is days away, restricted, or transferred. And this is very low, less than a quarter of the industry standard. This shows that how they conduct their operation and how they view their employee family. And I believe they view their community the same way, as all part of one family. We have made sure with our discussions with Land and Stone ownership and management that Land and Stone carries adequate limits of insurance to address any issue that may arise from an incident that could cause bodily injury or property damage to a third party. The contracts that we have in place for Land and Stone products with the carriers is a contract between Land and Stone and the carriers. And if Land and Stone is presented with a claim, they are obligated to notify us and tell us about the claim. Whether they resolve the claim on their own or resolve it through the insurance carrier is totally up to them. The insurance carrier is bound to respond in any case. It's our experience that the companies that perform the blasting procedure for Lannon are very professional blasting companies. They carry their own limits of commercial general liability. And we have reviewed those contracts, and they are bound to perform their duties to the strictest standards. We've approved those. And speaking to the integrity of the organization, Robertson Ryan serves over 40,000 clients, as I've said, nationwide. We would rate Lannon as in the top 1% of all clients as their intention to safety program, best business practices, and integrity of their operation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. At this moment, I'm going to read a couple of the letters that we have. So I have one from Julie A. Schmidt, Mark's wife, from January 6th, regarding Land and Stones Product Inc., quarry expansion, Derrick Plan Commission, and Town Board. This letter is to inform you that my husband, Mark, my son, Nicholas, and my daughter, Samantha, have lived at West 220 North 5259 Town Line Road, Sussex, Wisconsin 53089 since 1999. We built the house and moved in September of 1999, and I had my first child, Nicholas, in October of 1999. My daughter, Sammy, was diagnosed with autism when she was 3 years old. She was born April 5th, 2001. She has significant sensory issues, one of which is sound. She is extremely adverse and terrified of dog barking, fireworks, and gunshots. She even cannot tolerate the crackling or popping noise a fire makes. Our home for her is a safe place or safe haven. Over the years, we have had to make uncomfortable family sacrifices for her various sensory issues. We don't have a dog because she is fearful of them and the barking. We avoid places where there are dogs. We cannot go to fireworks or parades as she is deathly afraid of gunshots. She will not come close to a campfire because of the crackling noise. We have to burn quiet wood in our fireplace, not the wood that makes too much noise. This is just one of the aspects of her life that we deal with and make sacrifices for on a daily basis. Having a quarry pit directly abutting our property would be devastating and catastrophic to our daughter's health and well-being. She would not be able to tolerate the blasting noise, the rock crushing machines, the truck noise, etc., that a quarry produces, let alone the house shaking, cracking, and other side effects the quarry will create on our property and home. Our daughter is home most of the time as she doesn't like to go places and seeks to avoid people, another aspect of her life we deal with daily. Please do not take away her one safe place. Respectfully submitted, Julie A. Schmidt. I have another letter from Bob Hartwig, who is the chairman of the town of Jackson. To the Lisbon Plan Commission. I have known the Dawson family for many years while serving on the town board in Jackson, Wisconsin. I have known them to be professional and easy to work with. When concerns have come from their neighbors, they have been quick to take feedback and make changes to their operation. Land and Stone runs a clean operation. Their equipment, buildings, and access roads are always tidy and well maintained. Recently, they've taken initiative to request a reduction in the speed limit surrounding their quarry so that trucks hauling stone on the roads aren't as loud or hazardous to the residents living along the road where the trucks travel. I believe this shows that they genuinely care and put a high priority on treating people the right way. I'm not familiar with the specific application you have on your agenda, but I want to let you know that Land and Stone is run by an honest and hardworking family that do their best to take good care of their community. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you'd like more information. From Jim Healy, Village Administrator in Richfield. I'm writing this letter to you today to provide a character reference for Land and Stone Products, Inc., who has been an exceptional member of the Village of Richfield's community, as well as many other communities for several decades. Although my experiences in recent years are limited to working with Hans and Heidi Dawson, their father Virgil was also a well-respected and civic-minded individual who sat on our Park Commission for multiple years. From my perspective, the next generation of owners from Land and Stone Products, Inc. are the same type of conscious business owners their father was. Conscientious, excuse me. I have seen firsthand how their support has positively impacted the Richfield Volunteer Fire Company, Richfield Historical Society, and our community's youth sports programs. Additionally, Land and Stone Products, Inc. has been a longtime supporter of our annual Richfield Day celebration, which helps raise money for our volunteer fire company. Their website touts their involvement with helping to support 16 community-based organizations, which is also noteworthy. In my opinion, Land and Stone Products, Inc. compares favorably with the best of the village's business community and has proven to be a true partner and valued stakeholder in the community. While admittedly, I am not familiar with the proposal in the town of Lisbon, I have no issues rendering an opinion on the positive working relationship we've developed with Land and Stone Products because it has been just that positive. From Anthony Monticelli, to whom it may concern. I've been a resident of the town of Lisbon for over 15 years. I'm in favor of rezoning the property at North 52 West 22504 Lisbon Road and think it would be a good step for the community. My family and I own and operate Monticelli Stone Company in Landon, Wisconsin. We've had the pleasure of working with the Dawson family and the Land and Stone Products staff for over 20 years. During this time, we have found Land and Stone Products to be a great company that provides good jobs to people in our area. They're also a great asset in our local community as they contribute to many community events. In the years working besides Land and Stone Products, they have always tried to accommodate our business needs as well as the needs of surrounding residents. They are genuinely nice, honest people who are always looking to work with us, not against us. I feel that allowing them to rezone the property on Lisbon Road would help assure that they can remain a positive business in our area for many years to come. Kenneth and Sharon Greasy. On the public hearing number 1 on January 6, 2022, I am opposed to any changes that would increase the blasting criteria and decrease the measurement to blast for the following reasons. My house built about 11 years ago shakes and moves on blasting days, and the drywall compound over the screws used to hold the drywall to the studs have continued to come loose and fall out, causing yearly upkeep to repair the damage from blasting. Any increase would cause an increase in the amount of damage from the blasting. I've had to replace my well pump and was told the vibrations from blasting increases the chance of well failure due to the vibrations. They installed extra support to help slow the failure of the pump. From Tom Goodix. Dear Plan Commission, stone is a natural resource that is required by the building industry. It is critical that Land and Stone Products is allowed to expand their quarry and preserve access to our stone natural resource. Having stone close by lowers our building costs by having shorter transportation distance, and the processing of the stone in the local quarry provides good paying jobs to the local community. Land and Stone Products has always been a responsible community partner and member of the business community. When the well at Land and School and surrounding private wells tested positive for bacteria, Land and Stone Products was there to help out the community. I know Land and Stone Products is a good neighbor because I've lived about 500 yards east of Land and Stone Products for the last 34 years. During my time on the Land and Village Board as trustee and president, I found Land and Stone Products very professional, supportive, and accommodating. Issues have always been addressed immediately. From Keith Alexander, president of VisuSewer. VisuSewer Inc. is a direct neighbor to the south of Land and Stone operations and fully support the request to rezone and support the conditional use for Land and Stone Products. We have been in the neighborhood 26 years and have been in full approval of the quarry operations to our north and west of our facilities. Land and Stone, since taking over both quarries, has been cooperative and responsible neighbor to all the local concerns of running an operation of that magnitude. I have personally managed VisuSewer for 21 years and have been on the board, Wisconsin Underground Contractors Association board for 6 of those years. Over that period of time, I have watched Land and Stone support many local businesses in Southeast Wisconsin's construction industry and provide good paying jobs for our local community. As their business resides in the town of Lisbon, Land and Stone has our support for expansion 100%. Any questions on the matter, I can reach to my office. From Jeremy Smith, Sussex Administrator. It is my understanding that Land and Stone will be before your Plan Commission and our town board for public hearing on their operations. Hans Dawson asked me to send a reference letter for consideration based upon the village's experiences working with Mr. Dawson and his company, which I am happy to do. Land & Stone has operated in the village of Sussex for many years, has been an excellent partner in the community. They have worked closely with the village to update their plan of operation from the previous owner of Vulcan Products and help modernize the Sussex quarry ordinance. In addition, Mr. Dawson and his team have been incredibly responsive if concerns arose about impacts from the quarry operation, water, dust, noise, vibration, etc. Land & Stone has demonstrated time and again to be responsible corporate partners with the village. Over the years, we've updated quarry reclamation plan, went through a rigorous process to modernize their blasting techniques to have less impact to the surrounding area, went through a building remodel and updated the driveway to ease truck congestion. Mr. Dawson has honored his word with the village at every turn of those processes. The Land & Stone team cares deeply about running a successful business while caring about their neighbors at the same time. They look for creative ways to resolve issues, and their team members have served on various community work programs over the years, helping Sussex grow. Sussex is glad Land & Stone is part of our community and looks forward to working with Mr. Dawson and his team for many years to come. Please share these comments with the appropriate governing body as warranted during the public hearing. From Eric Teresi. My name is Eric Teresi, and I'm both a resident of Lisbon, Wisconsin, and an employee of Land & Stone. I run the plant at the East Quarry off Lisbon Road. I want to let you know that in my nearly 2 years working here, I've been impressed with the way the company cares about its community. Since I've been here, I've seen us cancel and delay blasts due to the safety, even if that meant not producing for a few days. We've installed new dust collectors and shut down the plant on windy days to keep the dust inside the quarry. We bring in school groups and teach kids about earth science. Our wages and benefits at the quarry depend on a large reserves of quality stone and our ability to produce a lot of it each season. Without this stone, our community can't make roads and buildings. I'm in favor of the rezoning that ensures stone reserves for the next generation. I'm also in favor of the changes to the blasting limits, as Lisbon's current limits aren't as strict as the state limits. Thank you for taking my letter in consideration. I think that is all of them. All right, I'd reopen for public comments. Who'd like to go next?
I do. My name is Kirk Texemer. I'm the president of DF Tomasini. We are located on Indian Grass Lane in Lisbon. And I'm here tonight. I wanted to speak on behalf of Land & Stone and the Dawson family. We have worked alongside them, worked for them for over 30 years. And I can tell you, it's been nothing but professional. And they're good for the community, like us, really run a professional business. And I think you'll find anything that needs to be addressed or handled. I'm very impressed with Hans's passion and wanting to take care of things and just be on top of it. So I recommend that this be passed, and it's really a big part of our business as well. So thank you.
My name is Justin Cradaville. I'm the operations manager for Ozinga Ready Mix that operates a ready mix concrete plant inside the Lisbon pit located at W220 and 6799 Town Line Road. Ozinga Ready Mix is the 4th generation ready mix concrete operation. Knowing that the Dawson family and Hans is a 3rd generation ownership, it's kind of interesting because typically you don't see businesses get that far along with generational ownership. And it's very clear that you have to be innovative and aware to the concerns of the community in order to advance yourself with that many generational ownerships. And it's evident to the proposal that you've seen today that Hans has been very innovative and aware to the concerns of the community. I mean, the setbacks, the stringent regulations that he places on himself is unbelievable. Lanham produces very quality aggregates, and we've partnered with Land & Stone over the last 5 years that we've been around here in Wisconsin. And if you've ever driven Interstate 94 from College Avenue in Milwaukee down to Highway G in Racine, Ozinga Ready Mix Concrete supplied 297,000 cubic yards of concrete. And in that concrete was Lannon product, the quality product. And I can tell you that we had no issues with that product, to the point that, because there was no issues, we were able to satisfy the demands of that project and finish several months earlier than anticipated, which was great. And that was over a billion pounds of sand and gravel, by the way, that went in there. So I will tell you that Lannon Stone holds us to a higher standard. We've repaved the entire area that we've got our batch plant in. We've purchased a water truck. We've got a vac truck. We monitor things, more advanced than EPA standards or Department of Natural Resources standards. So I will tell you that, with the Dawson family, what Hans Dawson identifies, they hold true to, and they hold us to a higher standard as a result. So on behalf of Ozinga Ready Mix, we're recommending that the proposal set forth be approved as submitted today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Ehrlitz. My address is W220 and 5355 Town Line Road. Mr. Jankowski and also Mr. Hubble are my neighbors. My house was built back in 1959. My husband and I have lived there close to 28 years. Since we moved in, we were having well problems. Now, I know nothing about the Dawson family. I've heard a lot of good things. And I believe it was Vulcan that owned it at that time. And I called and I told them about my problem. And they said, well, I'm really sorry, but the quarries were here first. Excuse me. I didn't understand that at all. And then I see all my neighbors getting letters about this hearing. I never received a letter. I had no idea this hearing was going on, except my neighbor called me and told me. I have suffered a lot of damage because of the blasting. I had 2 family heirlooms that were over 100 years old. Because of the shaking of my house, they fell and they broke. These are things that meant a lot to me, and they are very irreplaceable. I have no idea who to blame. Honestly, like I said, these things are irresistible, or irreplaceable. And like I said, I don't know anything about the Dawson family. I'm just worried about what's going to happen to my home, to my well again, and my septic system. A lot of our neighbors in that area have had to have mound systems put in. Question is, and I'm not sure, why did that have to happen? I believe there were 4 or 5 that had to be done in our area, on Town Line Road and also on Bonnie Lane. I'm really not too keen on this idea. I believe we have enough blasting and dynamite going off in our area that it needs to stop. I mean, I understand that the quarries are needed for all the products that they provide, but don't the people in the community matter at all? Don't we, the taxpayers, matter at all? I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but do you people get paid for doing this? Because it's our money that's paying you to do it. So if you please just give this all a second look and make sure it's not only right for the Dawsons, but also for the community that is involved in all this. Thank you very much for your time.
What was your last name again? I'm sorry.
Ehrlitz, it's Ehrlitz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more before we.
Hi, my name is John Radmer. I live at W220 N5229 Town Line Road. And this is going to be in my backyard. And who would want that? The one question I have to ask you guys, would you want this in your backyard? We built this, our house in 2001. This is our dream house. This is our place that we're gonna spend the rest of our life. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with a quarry in my backyard. I mean, it's agriculture, it's a farm. I thought the worst thing that's gonna happen is maybe there's a subdivision there or something. But to put a quarry, like the worst thing possible. I mean, I can't even think of something that would be worse in my backyard. I honestly can't. And all I have to do is ask you guys, would you want this in your backyard? I don't think you would.
Okay, we will suspend it at this moment. And Hans, if you want to address some of these, or all of them actually.
Again, just want to thank everyone that spoke in support of this, but I think you guys are probably more interested in some of the concerns. So I'll actually go back, and I think let's see here. Okay, regarding hours of operation, could they change? We're proposing this as our permanent hours going forward. So like I mentioned before, we're hoping to actually compress our production window, but this is something we're proposing going forward, and we would not be able to change them unless we went through this whole process all over again and submitted all the same sort of things and had public hearing and change of plan of operations. So I guess the answer is, I guess technically there is a legal path, but we believe that this will be an ongoing concern. There's also a question about who to talk to. I think it's been discussed, but the fastest way to get a resolution is to call Land and Stone Products directly. So our number is online. Nate and I can also leave cards here afterwards to visit with anybody. So you have our contact information, and we'll obviously jump on any concerns right away. Regarding Mrs. Schmidt's letter on her daughter with sound, I mean, it definitely, tugs at the heartstrings. I don't want anyone to feel scared. I don't want them to be scared of noise. And, people that do have a couple of special needs should probably get some special consideration for their neighbors. And I hope that a number of the things that we're doing demonstrate that we're able to do that. The berm that we're proposing, it's not a 2-foot berm. I mean, given its width, it'll probably be something like 20 feet tall, 25 feet tall. And if you walk up these berms and then you walk back down, it's like a light switch. I mean, the sound turns off behind these berms. So they're a tremendous resource to help reduce sound. And when we put in our berms along the northeast side of our Sussex quarry, probably more than any project I've ever done in my career, I had neighbors calling me up and thanking me for doing it, just out of the blue, coming in, stopping in, thanking me, calling me, saying that berm was the best thing that ever happened to our neighborhood. So these things do work. They're substantial. And then when you vegetate them, the more chance they get to grow all the fir and the trees and the grasses on there, that also filters those sound waves. So this is a pretty big deal. And then beyond that, our equipment itself does get quieter and quieter as time goes by. Our loaders and our trucks get quieter with updated engines. Our drills get quieter. Everything we do gets quieter with new regulations and new restrictions from both the EPA and the equipment manufacturers themselves. Specifically, there was also a comment about the noise of our crusher, and our crusher is actually never going to go into that land. Our crusher, when we move it, is actually going to move a couple hundred feet further away from the east side of our property, just the way that our mine sequence works out. So we actually won't have crushers any closer than they are now. And of course, the projects we work on continually reduce noise. And I want to give you guys a specific example on noise. So Nate, if you want to pull that up, south of our Halquist quarry, which we call our West quarry, there's a machine that makes big rocks. It's called riprap. And this machine tumbles big rocks in a circle and makes big size stone, big stuff. And we went over to visit with some neighbors and said, hey, we want to talk to you about this. And we pulled up and we heard it right away. And I looked at Nate and Paul and I said, oh my God, this has got to change, guys. This is not going to work for us. So we limited our specific hours of operation voluntarily on that machine. We used to be able to run it on Saturdays. We don't do that anymore. We actually wait for our startup times, which was a little bit of a hassle for production, but we did. We actually delayed it. And then in addition to that, it's kind of a faint picture here, but you can see those long black strips. This is high durometer thick rubber that we had custom designed for this plant. And then we actually had noise dosimeter readings before and after installation. And we reduced the noise coming off of this machine by over 20 decibels. And again, for some context, decibels are a log scale, but to reduce something by 20 decibels means you reduced it by 75%. So between our voluntary restrictions of operations and adding this type of machine, we've reduced the noise dramatically. And we've gotten some very positive feedback from our neighbors to the south, and they're in the city of Pewaukee. We call it the Woods Edge subdivision, I think is the name of it. But these are the sort of things that we do all the time. So, you know, again, for your daughter, I'd love you to get my number. I'd love to sit in your backyard with you. And I'm an engineer, guys. I love designing stuff that makes things better. It's what I do. I get up every day thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it. And I don't just innovate for one group. I don't just innovate for our customers or for our owners or our employees. I innovate for everybody. And our team does. I mean, we've got a killer group of engineers. We meet weekly. We talk about these sort of things. And you know, we are certainly in compliance. We do all that stuff, but I want to go beyond compliance. These are the sort of things we do that we don't have to do, but it's who we are. And I want to keep doing that stuff. So I want our neighbors to have a good life. I want our neighbors to have a good life, and I want you to know that I'm here. And then one of the letters, Mr. Greasy, regarding blast criteria, I think we covered that. If you're okay, I think we kind of covered that. A good amount. Pump damage, again, please call. We can't fix what we don't know, so we're certainly there. And Miss Ehrlitz, who lives on Town Line Road. Again, I just can't speak to Vulcan, but I know what we do. And one of the things you'll notice in the planner's report is that this plan of operation is actually for Land and Stone Products. So you're getting us along with this package. And I know for some people that doesn't mean a lot, but I think for a lot of others, I think it does. How we run our company, I think, matters. And something like calling up and telling a neighbor we were here first, it might technically be true, but that doesn't fly in our family. It's just not how we think about things. As far as no notifications about the meetings, we follow all the ordinances on notifications. So she must have been just beyond the number of feet. And I think Elisa can maybe comment to that. Okay. And then as far as mound systems versus septic systems, that's actually, you know, if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of the mechanics of that, that's actually based on subsurface geology and the drainage quality of the gravels in the area. So that would really drive that, which of course, the good Lord put there and I didn't have much to do with. So yeah, I think that's all I had. Attorney Macy, did you have any other or planner?
I just want to add to what Hans stated regarding the hours of operation. It would be a conditional use permit amendment. Should the hours of operation as proposed be approved as part of this conditional use permit, even though they're part of the site plan of operations, it would be a conditional use permit amendment to change those. And there's a condition specifically stating that the hours of operation as proposed would be what is allowed for the conditional use.
Orin, can you speak to, I know this isn't directly related, but the mounds versus conventional septics. So a mound system obviously is usually put in place where ground doesn't perk. It's not necessarily it's not in any way, shape or form for vibration or anything like that.
Correct. So a POUTS permit, you know, dictates whether or not the soil conditions allow for one type of system or another. That involves, you know, digging a test pit for a soil scientist to take a look at what's there and whether or not the conditions are present for conventional, you know, it's called a perk test. Does the water flow through it or not? And if it doesn't, then you go the route of the more expensive mound system to be able to add the materials in that will create the conditions to allow for the necessary flow of the material.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board or plan commission at this time? Linda?
Could you please tell me how many truckers do you have employed as well as total employees? I'm just
Oh.
curious.
Yeah, thank you. So within the company, we have 105 employees. In addition to that, there is Heidi 50, 60 certified truckers that base out of our quarry. So they're dedicated subcontractors. And then in addition to that, we have a number of obviously vendors that are dedicated by us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug, anything? Ed?
On the reason for this procedure tonight
Microphone.
is whoops. Yeah, no, I've been listening. The reason for this meeting tonight is there's the whole 33.04, the blasting permits, et cetera. And the proposal is to update based on outdated standards. So there's been a lot of discussion tonight, obviously about blasting, the effects on basements, wells, et cetera. In terms of if this does happen, in other words, the proposal as put forth passes, what do you foresee as better monitoring of blasts that will occur as, and the other discussion, of course, is the expansion of the quarry, especially to the east.
Sure. Yeah, the
I
big.
mean, how is it monitored? I'm sorry.
Surely, yeah. So it's monitored by multiple seismographs that are placed by the blasting company, and there's a particular procedure they have to follow. These seismographs are calibrated by the state of Wisconsin every year. We do a minimum of 2, and then we add to that based on any need we have if we're trying to study an area. So they're placed at the closest structures to the blast. So we don't goose the results by putting them on the other side of town or something. They're actually placed at the closest structure so that we're giving ourselves the most aggressive results. Incidentally, we already have to follow state limits because that's also a state law. So a lot of what we have are these nested laws. So what we're just proposing is actually to go tighter than the state law so that you can hold us even more accountable. But we are already very familiar with this. And like I said before, we endeavor to be way below the limit because just safe isn't good enough for us because just safe can still be annoying. And we don't want to be annoying. You know, we really do want to have neighbors that appreciate Land and Stone as their neighbor. And so we're going to keep pushing that down. And we use, you know, Paul's team leads that for us. They are constantly analyzing. Every single blast gets reviewed by our team, by our blasters. Every single blast is scored. And then we actually give feedback to our blasters constantly. So we're trying to get ever better scores. So we have a perpetual improvement process that we go on. So we hold ourselves to a really high standard. And I hope that just us proposing this is demonstration of that we're actually asking to be tighter on ourselves than what's currently required.
All right. My other question, the berms as proposed, looking at the berms that were at the former Hallquist site and the berms possibly that are more visible from Lisbon Road, I'm sorry, Silver Spring. You had mentioned the berms will be at least how high again,
Yeah,
gentlemen?
Paul, tell us. Okay, so in that 200-foot footprint, yeah, we can get safe slopes. Yeah, 250-foot footprint with safe engineered slopes. We can get what, 30 feet? Yeah, 30 feet. So we typically build to the maximum allowable height within being safe structurally.
Okay, well, and the point would be that these berms are, I mean, when we think of berms, we typically think of berms that are on subdivisions.
Right.
This is way beyond that.
This is substantial earthwork.
So
And
hence their ability to project noise, et cetera, into the atmosphere instead of straight out is a lot greater. Now I don't know if there's any studies that have been done on this, honestly, but it would seem to be in terms of sound vibrations that would seem to correlate and make sense, that it's going to shoot into the atmosphere, except not towards parties, homes, or residents.
Right.
Am I?
That's right. And there has been a lot of studies on that. So the DOT, for example, when they build their sound barrier walls, they have signs for that. But Mark's firm is Mark's from GZA Geoenvironmental, and they actually analyze sound impact on proposals for us. So they have equations, they can look at that. But an earthen berm, because of what goes on it, is like a supercharged and even better version of a wall, because walls just ricochet sound. Earthen berms actually absorb sound. So it's actually scoots it up and then actually reduces the overall sound pressure in general. So again, it's really something. If you walk up from our Sussex quarry and you're on the side where maybe there's a drill running or there's a loader down in the hole, you go up the hill and you walk down, and as soon as you're 5-10 feet down, I mean, it's just like a light switch. I mean, these berms work. I mean, there's a reason when we took over Vulcan, we voluntarily started to build them, because they're something else.
Yeah. And finally, just out of curiosity, obviously these berms take a lot of fill.
Yep.
Or a lot of material.
Yeah.
Is that coming from the overburden that would be taken to the east side of what used to be the Vulcan quarry or operation?
That's right. Yeah. So there
All
is,
right.
in the area where the farm field is, there's about 8 to 10 feet of overburden there, which gives us plenty of volume we have sufficient volume to build all those berms, and actually a little excess that we'll have to then place in the very bottom of the quarry.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking that, obviously, if you had to bring material in, that just exacerbates the problem of obviously more trucking, more noise, more dirt, more dust, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're
right.
saying the material would be from on site,
That's right.
all right, and not trucked in, et
That's right.
cetera. All right. At this point, no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir. The hours of operation.
Yeah.
So right now in Lisbon, all quarries are operating 6 to 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why should we allow 6 to 8?
It's a good question. It's just for one, to square up between Sussex and Lisbon, and then 2, for the emergency circumstance. Like I said, we love to keep our gates locked by 5. That makes for very happy employees, and happy employees makes for a happy Hans. But there might just be the occasional odd job or something that we've got to just ship just a little longer. So we wanted to have some of that flexibility just kind of built in, so we can be flexible for our customers. Because again, part of the submission is balancing all those needs, and one of those needs are our customers. So we wanted to have the flexibility to deliver for them.
So I might be one of the closest, if not the closest houses to the quarry in this room, just so everybody knows. I actually live next to, and also Stark Asphalt, which is actually in one of your quarries at this point in time. I will say I've been through decades of living there, and you are definitely a drastic step above in your family what I used to deal with. And I'm not trying to rip on the previous owners, but I will tell you, it has been much more pleasurable.
Thanks.
You've been very receptive to anything I've had question wise. You've come out, you've looked at things, and it's been very nice. I just want to establish that so people know where I'm coming from on this board. And yes, I am paid as a town board member, but it's equivalent to about $3.15 an hour.
Right.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
That's a lot of money, Mr. Chairman.
Right? Racks up at these meetings. So I guess as far as with the hours of operation, would you be amenable to something like having set number of days that you could operate later? I know, I don't know, what does Sussex do? It just straight till 8?
Yeah, so they have 6 to 8 for any time. And then we have in there, we can run 30 additional days beyond those hours if we notify well, in that case, the village. And then if we need to go beyond that, then we actually need to get village permission. So, yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, so with your Sussex pit, there's obviously this Lindale subdivision that's just to the north of you, but other than that, there's not a tremendous amount of homes that are close to you. Where with your other quarrying operations around, there's a lot more.
Sure.
You got Lisbon Lawns, obviously, and other subdivision, the new one, the new Helpquest subdivision that's just north of you over in that area, which actually is in the village of Sussex. But I guess I'd be looking for a possibility of something that could be more 6 to 6, but then within exceptions to go longer.
Sure. Well, we got the whole board here. JD, ready?
Well,
good. Okay.
So if you'd have to step up if
Sorry.
you would. Now, I'm one vote here, by the way. I'm just,
Jim Dawson. I've lived in Lisbon for almost 25 years now, and I'm Hans's uncle. Been doing this my whole life. To address the extra hours, you had these quarry in Sussex we have the right, like Hans says, to load at night 30 days a year with no notice. Another 30 days just by telling them, and anything over the 60 days, we have to go to mass permission. Since we bought that quarry 8 years ago, I believe, we've had, I think, 6 nights for one job that we worked at night. So it's not something that happens all the time. It's a very rare occurrence. So it's not like it's something that happens always. So.
Sure. And it's like I've tried to point out, your family has been very honorable. I mean, I think you have a lot of people that would attest to that. In 40 years, it may not be your family.
Yeah, true.
So that's where I'm looking at. It's not today or tomorrow. I mean, I would echo the handshake agreement I could make with you, and I would know you would follow through on every single thing you say. But it's when I'm no longer here, potentially even on this earth, we're talking about that kind of.
Yeah. I would say that the lands that are currently within the town of Lisbon, we'd be happy to go to 6 to 6. And then, but we would like to ship, like you said, from that Sussex quarry, because it is completely surrounded by railroads and highways and other quarries. Obviously that's a different municipality.
Right.
So but I'd be okay with that.
And I think, and exactly, I mean, that quarry, I think no matter where it was located in Sussex or Lisbon at any point in time, I think for myself, I would agree that the hours of operation within that being it's more localized, I would have no issue at all. I'm just thinking of the actual outlying areas
Sure.
more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Joe.
Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Macy.
Microphone.
I have a question, because I ran into this problem about 40 years ago. Somebody loads in Sussex and it comes out at Lisbon. How is this handled as far as the plan of operation?
Well, my interpretation would be they have to be in compliance with the more restrictive if they're in two communities.
Okay, because I just want to, I'm not that somebody's going to play games, or I'm not suggesting that at all. But I ran into an operation where they couldn't get a permit on one side of the road and they could on the other, and they just crushed over here, drove across the road and came out of the driveway over through here. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware how this is settled.
That makes sense. And I agree with Attorney Macy. It would be the more restrictive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good way to never get another permit. Yeah. All right, thanks.
Yes, we do. Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lisa Otis, ODDIS, W220 N9359 Town Line Road. Just have a couple of questions regarding the property that's on the property lines. Is that planned to increase with your future plans when we're talking 40, 50, 60 years? Or is this property, is this the whole property now and that's how it will be in 40 or 50 years or 20 years? And then I think I heard someone make a comment about this being the last quarry land in town of Lisbon. Just wondering what the details are on that. Is that this is the last area that has mineable land and stone? And so there would be no further requests for additional quarry land in the town of Lisbon. And then talking about berms, and the effects, noise, dust, vibration. I know that you're already going about 50 feet wider than what's required by the state, but maybe as a compromise, there are, a limited number of borders, mostly to the east, where there are residents, east and south. Would you consider maybe as a compromise increasing the width of those berms, not necessarily the height, but the width. So there is a bigger buffer space. And I wonder if that would be helpful. I don't know a lot about, or basically anything about mining, but maybe that might be a compromise to help the residents of Lisbon that have raised concerns. And then also going to the berms and as well to the environmentally protected areas. You've got a couple of small patches on the property, wondering how you plan to preserve those. I'm very concerned about the shrinking conservation land in the town of Lisbon with all of the current and upcoming development projects. So having said that, when we're talking about planting berms, re-landscaping after disturbance of lands, I feel like we're missing an opportunity to replace native plantings if we don't write that into requirements when there is new landscaping. And berms are a great area. You know, you can plant the right things that will grow and flourish and look great, be low maintenance, such as native prairies, dry prairies. Berms are very dry areas, but they're workable. So I would ask that that be absolutely considered to replace native plants and native habitats that we are developing and burying. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Who else would like to speak?
James Davidson. I live at N53W 21948 Redbud Lane in the Taylor's Wood subdivision of Menominee Falls that faces town line. Just a few things that I would say for the consideration of the planning committee. You know, number one, I think if you actually took a vote of all the property owners that would be affected by this, I highly doubt they would be positive about this. It does seem that Hans did a good job of getting out the vote for his side, but a lot of us affected by this didn't know about this. I found about this yesterday. So it does seem like the deck stacked a little bit in the favor of the quarry. The other thing is, this is ultimately about raising revenue and making money. You can do that through a business. You can also do that through expanding subdivisions. Other businesses that might come into the area that I think might be turned off if a quarry is expanded, right? So I guess my point to the board here or the planning committee just to consider is by expanding the quarry is the short-sighted. If you look at the subdivision development going further east down Lisbon, that brings tax base, that brings revenue, that brings people, that brings schools, that brings growth of the community, as well as businesses. And it seems that we need to balance those two things because it's not just about businesses, it's also about the community that surrounds it. Lastly, I'm pretty sure this is going to tank the property values of any property that's around it. Most of those properties that are hidden on a town line are flat. The berms sound like they will prevent the sound, but our subdivision sits on a hill that would absorb probably a lot of that sound. Today, we hear the blasting, we hear the noise, we hear the trucks. I'm not a fan of this at all. So I would just like to put that on record and strongly oppose the expansion of the quarry tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, Hans, if you want to. Oh.
Mike Schober, an attorney, 2835 South Moreland Road, New Berlin. I'd like to put this in a historical context because we're talking about a long-lived operation, an attempt to set aside some land for our children and their children. And that's going to become increasingly more difficult over the years. I represented the Dawson family in these types of situations since 1969. And our firm started in 1957. We've got a long-term relationship. I have always thought or learned, I guess, as I share my experiences with you, that over the years, that who you do business with may be more important than the piece of paper that you put together. If you get people who are committed to doing the right things, that avoids problems in the first instance. I'm going to hand you, maybe to be passed down, what I kept when Hans's grandfather passed away Dale Dawson. Dale started with one dump truck in 1952. And 1967, bought the Lannon quarry that has grown since then. 1970, I was involved in the Jackson pit, opened that one up. And while people acknowledge here that they have quality stone, excellent service and fair prices, they're successful operators. They know what they're doing. But there's a flip side to that. And that is that for all of these years, and I have to total up the number of operational years that they have, they've managed to coexist with the neighbors that they live with. You've heard heard from some of them. But interestingly, this is sort of cute, I guess. This is the funeral part from Dale Dawson when he passed away. As it comes down your way, you're going to see he was born in 1925, and that he's pictured in 1930 on top of a dirt pile with a hat on, his hand with a shovel, and a bucket there. His interest in quarrying apparently began at age 5 years old. And by the 1952, he was able to buy a single dump truck, and it expanded since then. But I think the point for you is that the expansion has been accomplished with people being in near proximity to the operation. These quarries have to have three criteria as I see it from my side. One is that there's quality stone. We all need that. This building wouldn't be here in this form without it. The next thing is it has to be accessible. You can't have it, the limestone 60 feet down and get it. It becomes prohibitively expensive. In this area, obviously the stone is near the surface. And lastly, you have to have it near the market. The people who need it want to pay as little as they can for their projects, whether it be a road or whether it be a single family house or anything in between. Transportation costs are significant, and you need these things near the market. It is a balance. It's a balance to be stricken between those who are nearby who would be concerned about the operation and the needs of the public. I've been sort of a advocate in our community, i.e. New Berlin, where I live down near Muskego, that we've lost the sense of community over the years. After World War II, the population had been pulled together by fighting this foe to maintain the integrity of our country. And since then, we seem to have lost this sense of community, how an operation or use might impact the immediate neighbors nearby, but that use is necessary for everybody, for their well-being, to hold on costs to build, to do all of those things. So one community might have a landfill. Nobody around that wants it, but the rest of us have to have some place for that material. Maybe a sports center of some kind, a baseball field. People beyond in the neighborhood are concerned about traffic, but still it's something that adds to the overall quality of life. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here. Airports, fire stations, truck terminals, auto dealers, recycling centers. They're scattered around the overall community, and we all need them. And we all need this stone. And here's an opportunity to expand an existing operation rather than to start a new operation. I don't know that it came up, but once that overburden is taken off to build the berms, the blasting will not be done at the surface, which is where you have to start. at that point, there's a wall and the blasting will continue in that wall and the protections that the wall provides. And the ways in which it can be minimized as have previously been discussed. These processes that are described to you, this is the only way to do it. I tell people that our clients are not making marshmallows. They have to blast. There's no other way to do it. If you were able to visit a quarry, you'll see many areas where it's maybe 80 to 100 feet high. It's one rock. It's been the crustaceans or whatever that made it up 200 or 400 million years ago with pressure have made this into one rock. There's not fissures to take an end boulder and crack it off. You have to blast it. And we need that material. There's stones and there's stones. Glacial stones that have been rolled by the glacier are round and have rounded edges. They have limited applications because however much you break them up, they have a round part to them. Whereas this type of stone doesn't have any round edges to it. It performs differently than the rolled glacial stone. And if you've ever driven up to a stop sign, an asphalt, and you see a roll on the road, they use the glacial rolled stone because when those cars put pressure on, or forward movement puts pressure on the pavement, it slowly rolls it. I think that state specifications and other community specifications require to use the fractured stone because it doesn't suffer from those same types of problems. One thing that was mentioned too was a concern for when blasts occur, and that's easily understood. But there also is a provision that there would be a call list. So the people who really want to know about the fact that there's an event coming up with a blast will have that notice if they're called. I know there was a complaint recently over in Lannon where somebody didn't call, but we did call and we left a message. They weren't there to take the call. So if there's a problem, as was mentioned, we have to know about it in order to fix it. And things like the call list, the people will know when a blast is going to occur and other steps will be taken to minimize the impact in general and on those who might have specific concerns. That plan of operation is really the device by which the community has the opportunity to regulate the operation and the ways in which it occurs. And that has been successfully used in all other communities. And I know Town Attorney Macy has been involved in a number of those. And I believe that plan of operation has been through the review of many people on your staff and certainly on sales of Land and Stone products. So all I can say is that when you come to make your decision as to a recommendation to the board itself, it has to be based on the facts. It has to be based on science, logic, and reason, and not on fear and emotion. That's not going to get any of us to the end that we should reach. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. My name's Paul Minetti. Work at I live at 2823 Kaganza Drive in Summit, Wisconsin. I'm Land and Stone sales manager, so I have a real unique opportunity to work with our customers to see what they do with our stone after it leaves the quarry. So a lot of stuff that's already been mentioned. We're talking highways, roads, schools, subdivisions that a lot are expanding in our area right now. What Tom Gudek said. Having a location so close to these subdivisions, these businesses allows material costs to be low, trucking to be low, and that's going to save consumers money. Line, please. So but we're a vital part of the local economy. That's been said. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And more importantly, I rely on Land and Stone for provide for my family, and I wouldn't work here if my personal values didn't align with the Dawsons and Land and Stone. So I'm fully supportive of what we're proposing tonight. Thank you.
Right, so again, I want to thank everyone that came up to speak. Certainly appreciate taking the time out of the evening. But I did want to start with, I think it was Lisa Otis, who was on the Zoom call. She had some very interesting points that I'd like to address. So the first is, are these lines ever going to increase? And Nate, if you could pull up the site use plan, which is Exhibit B. And I'll kind of explain why we don't anticipate that these lines will ever move. So if you just kind of go around all of the quarry, you'll notice if you go site by site by site by site, and all the different corners, they're basically stopped by an environmental feature, such as a river or a wetland or a waterway or something like that. They might be stopped by a civil feature like a railroad or a highway. They might be stopped by a subdivision or a business park, where the value that they're at now, there's just stuff there, right? So these areas we're contemplating are kind of the last open land. We're not limited geologically. We're actually pretty blessed in this region. If you zoom way out to the region, you'll see just a big arc of rock that's really close to the surface, but we are limited practically. So basically this should define the relationship of the quarry and the town going forward. So we don't anticipate that this will ever be expanded beyond that. She also mentioned about berms. Regarding the width doesn't actually drive, just from a technical point of view, the width doesn't drive it so much as the height and then the vegetation that goes on there. So that's really the main thing. So while we actually have a little wiggle room in our proposal to make the berms a little wider than we proposed, it's the height that we're interested in. That's the thing that really drives the noise reduction. And then last, I actually would like Nate to come up quick. So she mentioned about conservation lands. And we have a couple slides, and Nate actually runs our conservation program in our company, just to speak very briefly about some of those.
Good evening. My name is Nate Swinton. I'm the development director for Land and Stone. Do you need my address? All right. 2369 North 64th Street in Wauwatosa. So just a couple quick things on environmental and ecological stuff. This is the most fun part of my job by far. This is about half of my job, is running this whole department. And we do all of the compliance stuff. There's about 36 different federal, state, and local agencies that oversee mining as far as compliance wise, but we like going quite a bit beyond that. So I guess just first to start off, almost all quarry land that we have starts out as farm fields, and farm fields are what I call, a lot of experts call it ecological desert, which basically there's going to be, over the course of the year, usually one species that's living there, and then the rest of the year there's nothing living there, and there's a very limited amount of creatures that can take any advantage of that space at all. So obviously we are putting a huge hole in the ground, and we're taking out trees, we're taking out grass and topsoil and things like that. We've got tremendous borderlands around our quarries. If you look at the second bullet point there, we've now got about 96 acres of actively managed and planted areas where we've put down native prairie, blends of 30 to sometimes 100 types of native prairie grasses. They're native this region right here, and then a lot of native trees. We've got about 46 more acres planned just for our Lisbon area right here. So we've got, these significant berms and areas, and then some areas that are wetlands. They'll never be able to be quarried, but kind of just stay in our land package here. And we're excited about this because this area, like I said, it's been farm fields. There's not been a lot of ecological diversity here. But in those new areas, as we've developed them and put up these berms and everything, our rule is when we move dirt, we want to put something native on top of that dirt. we've created a pretty abundantly diverse ecological area around the boundary of our quarry. So much so that there's actually a lot of controversy and a lot of jockeying for position as people ask for permission to come and hunt and fish in our lands. That would not be the case if it was not very robust areas with a lot of ecological diversity. We have a reclamation plan on file with Waukesha County. And that reclamation plan, which you can get, it's all public record, actually details exactly what our planting guidance is. We reclaim as we go. We don't plan to just reclaim the quarries and turn it back into something useful for the community in 100 years. We reclaim things as we go through the area. So that area is already pretty nice. If you flip the next slide for me there, just want to go even a little bit further. We've been members for several years now of the Wildlife Habitat Council, which is an international agency that helps companies figure out how to do better with their land. Because like Hans said a couple of times, we're really good at putting the right crusher in and putting the right screens in and, managing our conveyors and everything. But this is a thing that's a different kind of engineering for us. And it takes some expert help. And we've got a lot of active species and habitat projects on site. We actually target specific species and specific habitat types that are super important in the local area. And we've done such a good job with that. There's actually a company, Indian Summer Honey Farms, that raises their bees on our lands, on our berms, because they're so good for those bees. That wouldn't be the case if we weren't doing a really great job. So we've got a lot of evidence to support the fact that we care a lot about the environment, and we're going to be expanding those efforts quite a bit in the next couple of years.
And then for James, and I was writing too fast, I think it might be Davidson. He had a couple of concerns related to property values. And if that's all right, we actually have an expert in the room here, Mark Krumenacher here from GZA Geoenvironmental, that studied that particular topic pretty extensively. So I'll let Mark take over.
Thank you. Mark Krumenacher. I live at on River Edge Drive in the southern suburbs of Monchez in Merkin Township. So I actually live near a quarry. There's a sand and gravel pit. North Lake Sand and Gravel is kind of in my backyard. And I can hear it. It's a noise. I also hear the Harleys on Highway E, and I hear the train. I hear the airplanes. I hear it all. And I hear my neighbors blowing their leaves and mowing the grass. And so there is little noise. I do mine I have a bachelor's and master's in geology and geophysics, and I've been with my company GZA for 34 years. And the latter half of my career has been in mining, non-metallic mining primarily. And I've been involved in it so much, I've been at so many public hearings that this is truly a rare instance for me to be in a room as packed as this was. I can see it's cleared out quite a bit this late, and have the vast majority of the comments be positive instead of negative. I've heard a lot of negative over the course of my career. And so one of the things that I have studied is the property value issue, because it's always brought up. It was only brought up here like twice, but there's only been 6 people really speaking against the mine. And hearing the property value concerns many years ago, over a decade ago, I was asked to give a presentation on the economic costs and benefits of industrial sand mining in Wisconsin. And I thought the biggest concern, since it's always property values, it would be very easy to find information on property values and impacts of mines on property values. And the one thing that I found is that no matter how much research you do, you cannot find any scientific studies, any valid studies whatsoever on mines negatively impacting property values. And the reason for that is it's just not out there. There is, if you Google it, which is what most people do, you will find that there is a report referred to as the Ericek report or the Heights study that claims mines have impacted property values. And I was very curious about that report written by George Ericek, that I contacted Professor Diane Height at Auburn University, who he referenced in his report, and he referenced it as the Height study. And I talked to Diane Height, Professor Height, And I asked her if I could see her study. And she said it wasn't a study, it was actually a draft working paper on hedonic pricing models, trying to evaluate the impact of something like a quarry or a landfill on property values. And she looked at 2 limestone quarries in Columbus, Ohio, and George Erichek was fighting a sand and gravel pit in Southwest Michigan. And he used some of the information from her working paper and came up with this theory that prices are going to vary within 4 miles of a mine, and property values within a mile of the mine might see a 25 to 30% reduction in property value, and then kind of lower reduction in property value the further you get from a mine up to about 4 miles. And other people have taken that little plot and used that, and that's why the number we heard today was there's going to be a 30% decrease in property value because of a mine. But that's the only paper that says anything about it, and it's not even a valid study. But there's no other paper that addresses it. And when you think about the fact that mining has been going on here since 1920, how can a 1,000-foot expansion now decrease the surrounding property values, which have, according to the Erichek paper, already been reduced by 35%, be reduced by another 35% with each mine expansion, right? These properties would be free if that were the case. So there's really no validity to the claim. I mentioned that, I've been being involved in permitting quarries and addressing every issue imaginable, and even many that are unimaginable. And I was asked last year if I could write a paper for the aggregate producers of Wisconsin that they can use to demonstrate to the lawmakers that there is extensive regulatory control and oversight of quarries, and including things like property value. And that paper became too thick. How do you hand out a paper that's 200 pages? And so what I ended up doing is actually writing a book on the topic. So I've spent a lot of time studying quarries, and I don't think there's anybody that has studied the impact of property values more than I have, and I'm willing to take questions and respond to that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments that you'd like to make in the public hearing?
No hands raised on Zoom.
And we're going to open the regular plan commission meeting. The board members have left. It's just the 4 plan commission members at this time. Item 2 is citizens' comments. Does anyone have anything at this time on anything on the agenda? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Oh, Lisa?
Hello.
Lisa?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Trying to adjust my lighting because I look like I'm washed out. Used to doing Zooming meetings during the day. Is this a time where I could just make a general comment, or is it just related to the topics for the meeting tonight?
If it has to do with the plan commission, now would be a good time.
Okay. It kind of goes back to what I spoke to earlier and what I speak to regularly. And I'm sorry, do you want me to restate my address? Lisa Otis, W220 N9359 Town Line Road. And that has to do with what we're doing on a nature conservancy environmental impact front. And I just wanted to talk about last plan commission meeting where Mike Merrick received approval for 3 development projects. And there is a lot of development going on, as we all know, in the town of Lisbon. If we have to go through development such as it is, okay, we have to do it, or we are going to do it, regardless of other factors. So my thought is that can we come to some type of a balance between destroying natural habitats and then restoring them, or bringing back other, creating new native habitats. And that speaks to the earlier comments about planting berms with native plants. And I'm very happy to hear that Land & Stone is sensitive to that. I hope that they're sincere, because, you know, there is a, you know, the site near the Walmart in Germantown, you know, a natural wetland was filled in, and they created a artificial wetland to replace the disturbance to the land. You know, if you don't manage that land, weeds are going to take over. And so it does need help for, you know, 1 to 2 years, and then those areas are self-sufficient, little maintenance to no maintenance. And they also provide habitat for pollinators, birds, on up the food chain to us. Without pollinators, we don't have fresh fruit and vegetables. So I was very put off by the fact that Mike kind of downplayed my discussion on planting native plants, saying, oh, you have to burn it and all that stuff. It's just too much hassle. And it seemed that the board, or that the commission, agreed. And Ed, you didn't even speak out at all about it, which I was surprised. Planting native plants is not a hard thing to do. Not all plants have to be burned. There are native trees, native shrubs, there are perennials that will grow beautifully without having to go through a berm. If you do a berm, if you plant a true prairie area, burning is nature's way of controlling weeds versus herbicides, pesticides. And we have done that in the town of Lisbon at the community park. Under John's his tenure as on the park commission, there have been a couple of burns of the prairie area that was planted in the park. It's not that hard. Prescribed burns are being done all the time. It's easy. And so I wanted to just bring up that topic, that please do consider this. You know, we're destroying a lot of natural habitat, native plants. Let's at least replace them where we have opportunities. And anytime that disturbed land in a development is there, it's an opportunity to replant it with native plants, so that we're not just succumbing to invasive natives, ugly things, plants that do not help the environment. So I did want to bring that up. Also, at last meeting, I did bring up the question of, in a lot of the development plans, there is filling of wetlands, natural wetlands, to create artificial wetlands. That was not addressed at all, and I'm curious about why that is beneficial. Is that a way to create lands that are developable versus conservancy land? I don't understand that. It seems like it would cost more, it would be a bigger hassle, and you're destroying something that's already there. So I would be very interested to, at some point, maybe it's off the record, to discuss this with Joe or Kathy or someone on the board. Ed, I don't know where to go with that, but I feel like my question remains unanswered on that. So thank you for the time that I can speak about the last meeting, mostly.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone else? All right. Move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes of the December 2nd, 2021 Public Hearing and Plan Commission meeting. You have the minutes. Any questions or comments or corrections? Or is there a motion on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the meeting notes of December 2nd, 2021 be approved as submitted.
Is there a second? Second by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Joey believes James.
I was not in attendance.
So it's 3 ayes, 3-0. All right. Item 4, new business. A, discussion necessary action on the request by Dan Scardino of MLG PF Twin Pines LLC for approval of a temporary site plan and plan of operations for the Twin Pine Farms Phase 3 Parade of Homes event from August 12th, 2022 through September 5th, 2022. Is the applicant here?
Looks like it's on. I'm Joe Bukovich with Point Real Estate. I'm here filling in for Dan this evening. And we're here tonight for a plan of operation for the Parade of Homes in the Twin Pine Farm 3 subdivision that was approved last year and built last summer. And the Parade of Homes will be going from, there'll be a preview night on Friday, the 12th of August next year, or later this year. And then the regular parade opens from the August 13th through September 5th. And we currently have 9 builders. The parade lots will be located on Hunter Court, which is the west side off of Center Oak Drive, on the west side of Twin Pine Farm 3. And we've had it there a couple times. I think 2014 and 2019 we've had it there. So it'll follow basically the same procedures as what's been done in the past. And I just wanted, from the staff report, I just wanted to let you know there were 7 lots listed since in the review. And since that time, there was 2 additional builders that bought lots that will be included in the Parade of Homes. And for the record, if lots 142 and lots 151 would be included in the discussion and hopefully positive recommendation, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
We don't have
Warren?
or do. I think it would be up here. In this area. So you have before you a request for a site plan of operation for temporary use for the Metropolitan Builders Association 2022 Parade of Homes at the Twin Pine Farm 3 subdivision. This would be the 3rd phase of the Twin Pine Farm subdivision. There was a locator map included in the packet materials that identifies this generally west of Lake 5 Road. The hours of operation would be, as stated, weekdays 4 to 8 and 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Labor Day. Staff doesn't have any issue adding the 2 homes, subject to the consideration of the Plan Commission. Items I wanted to go through are just that the proposed parking is to take place on lots 152, 53, 154, and a portion of 22, outlot 22 rather. Doing a desktop review of the land proposed, it appears that approximately 500 cars could be parked off street in those areas. And probably an additional 500 cars could be parked on the roads within phase 3 without blocking intersections. And therefore the site could handle a total of approximately 1,000 cars. The applicant provided a chart showing historical attendance and a peak of approximately 1,600 attendees on the 3rd Saturday of the event. That would probably be a best case scenario, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the high end.
And so the Plan Commission should just take all of that into consideration and make a determination if the proposed parking area is sufficient. The signage as proposed didn't include any actual proposed locations. And so there's a condition that the applicants submitted a temporary signage plan detailing the proposed locations for review and approval by the sign code administrator for the town. The other conditions are essentially related to the operation that Lake 5 Road be the primary point of ingress and egress to the event, which is the arterial in the area. The barricades be placed to clearly identify pathways for visitor safety. The final lift of asphalt be completed in accordance with the development agreement prior to the start of the event. Streets be swept prior to the commencement of the event. Aprons installed for entrance and exit from designated off-street parking areas, given that those, there may not be a driveway to the lots that are going to be the parking lot at that time, given the state of the development.
When we constructed it, we put in a cross culvert and we put a driveway apron in, crushed stone.
Great.
So it's all there. It's able for cars to get in there. It's not real steep or anything. So
Excellent.
that was planned for.
Yep, that would meet the requirement then. And then pathways being fenced and or barricaded to separate car and pedestrian traffic, the trash and sanitary facilities being provided in accordance with the plan of operation, waste and sanitary receptacles being emptied and cleaned by the event staff and or private contractor throughout the duration of the event, and outdoor storage of any materials being prohibited. And then there's conditions regarding event staff being present. That was pretty detailed in the proposal, the hours of operation, and then that this just be limited to the hours listed. So I would, per the applicant's request, condition 1A would need to be amended to, if the plan commission wishes to entertain the addition of the lots stated, which were again, Joe, 142 and 151, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's it.
And is that consistent with pretty much the report that was your predecessor prepared for the last one, for last year?
Correct. These conditions are very consistent with the event that was approved back in the summer of 2021.
I just wanted to make sure that we had consistency between the two parade events. And we may want to report that there were no issues that you're aware of, so that our conditions was last year.
I'm not aware of any complaints, staff, anything. Okay.
No.
The parking, you raised a potential question on that. If it would be sufficient, what's the recommendation?
The recommendation is that if the peak for the overall event across all of the, places that it takes place has been 1,600, that having space for approximately 1,000 vehicles at one point in time is sufficient. These events generally, people come and go. People aren't staying for the entire duration. It's like an open house where people can come, take a look at something, and then go on their way and at their own pace. And so, hearing that there have not been any concerns with the last event, I would imagine that that would be the case for this event, and that, as proposed, the approximately 1,000, being able to accommodate approximately 1,000 vehicles would be sufficient.
I want to check, I thought last time you didn't allow, for the Metropolitan Village, or, didn't allow parking on the street. Is that the street parking going to be allowed? I just want to get that clarified, because I thought in the last one they didn't allow it.
I don't know the answer to that question. But from a parking standpoint, the last one we had there was on 2 lots. This time we're proposing 3. And the 1,600 peak visitor number, that's over a 6-hour period. And if it's a family event, couples go, they bring children. So it's not 1 car per person. So we haven't had an issue with the parking in the past, and we've got 50% more parking space. So I wouldn't expect any cars to be parked on the roads.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, or Attorney Macy, there have, to my knowledge, there have been 2 model home events in that subdivision in Twin Pines within the last 2 to 5 years. And no, on-street parking was not allowed, because that would not help. And in other words, you were directed to park on the fields or on the lots that were available.
I recall seeing in here that there's no parking signs going up along the edges of the roads. I remember
Yeah.
seeing that in Dan's
There were.
summary.
Yes.
First base, I was
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
So then we're still talking about space for 500 vehicles if the plan commission feels that that's sufficient. Just
Yes.
off street.
for the builders, it's, obviously, it's an optimistic outlook. Hopefully, there won't be 1,000 people showing up within an hour.
But the commission is okay with the 500 stalls
Yes,
Yeah,
and no
yes.
on-street parking.
and no on-street.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
How are you going to dissuade people from, or encourage people to come in off of Lake 5 as opposed to every place else?
Through signage.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would help, especially you have a populated subdivision as you know better than we do, north of there, and to keep the
Mhm.
traffic out of there and just keep them on and off of Lake 5 and get them out, instead of going on the center road and on the Plainview. Well, they can't go south because it's a cornfield. Okay,
I'll mention that to Dan for his sign plan
Yeah.
when he prepares it.
we just want them to come in and out of Lake 5.
Yeah, the egress would be off of Lake 5. I'm assuming where the parking is, that's where you'll have, for example, a kiosk set up. People will then walk from there up to that cul-de-sac, and the homes will be in the area that's highlighted in red.
Correct. Then they would walk
Okay.
on Marshall to the west and then up the cul-de-sac.
On Marshall,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. I don't know, I didn't look to see what the name of the cul-de-sac is. And will, just in case somebody would get the idea, will the road, and I'm forgetting this, and I apologize, the highway to the
Center.
west, Center Oak, will that be closed into the subdivision? So you don't have traffic coming from the west heading east on Marshall?
I will ask Dan that as well.
Because that would
That
complicate.
would create a big conflict, and I would agree with where you're going with that.
Yeah.
That it'd be closed off during the parade hours.
I mean, it wouldn't be good.
No, not with pedestrians going one way and cars going the other.
No,
I agree.
no, it's not a good combination.
Okay. Anything else we need to cover? No. All right, is there a motion on this item?
I will, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the request by Dan Scardino of MLG/PF Twin Pines LLC for approval of a temporary site plan and plan of operation, SPP 00 brackets, for the Twin Pine Farms Phase 3 Parade of Homes event, excuse me, from August 12th, 2022 through September 5th of 2022, be approved per also planner recommendations, planner being FOF.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe.
Clarification, are we adding lots 142 and 151 to that motion?
You okay? Ed, you all right with that?
Yes, we are.
The second's okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Everybody
Sorry about that
understands
omission.
discussion, and so no, all the comments, no on-street parking, all that included, Ed?
Yes,
Yes. Okay, second's okay with that, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Item B, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Hans Dawson Land and Stone Products Inc. for the amendments to the Lisbon Town Code, in particular but not limited, chapter 33.04 regarding blasting criteria, measurement of blasts, and recommendations of the town board of the same. All right. Warren? I'm sorry? So this would be B. Is there anything, just go over the,
So you've got before you a requested text amendment to section 33.04 blasting procedures and controls to reflect current national and state standards for blasting. According to the petitioner, the current Lisbon standard of measurements of blasts as provided for in 33.04B does not reflect modern standards for blasting controls and allows blasts that could be disruptive to neighbors and potentially harmful for nearby buildings. The petitioner is proposing updating section 33.04 to a more stringent standard of measurement that reflects modern national standards by adding the text as provided in the staff report from both and in the submittal, striking some language and also adding some language. Are there any questions from the commission regarding the proposed text amendment?
No.
Brian? I have none either.
I have a personal aside that I used your ordinance in Lisbon when I wrote the Sussex ordinance, when Vulcan came in and we had no ordinance. I didn't realize at the time it didn't make any sense because I was just following your ordinance. Fortunately, Sussex has fixed it and now it's your turn to fix it.
Yep.
But I have some
Full
egg on
circle.
my face that I wrote an ordinance that the state now tells me had a formula that made no sense, but I blame Lisbon.
That's not fair.
It is interesting looking at that when you say can't exceed 0.5 and then it's 0.5 minus, it's like,
Yeah, it does.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Is there a motion on this item?
I will, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the action on the request by applicant Hans Dawson / Land and Stone Products, Inc. for amendments to Lisbon Town Code in particular, but not limited to Chapter 33.04 regarding blasting criteria and measurements of blasts and recommendation to town board of the same per also planning comments from FUF be approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Brian. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item C, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Hans Dawson, Land and Stone Products, Inc. for the amendments of the town zoning code in particular, but not limited to sections 4 sub H, sub 25, sub H, sub IV regarding conditional use exceptions and recommendations of the town board of the same. Warren?
So the applicant is requesting the proposed text amendment as stated by the chairman to reduce or eliminate setbacks and offsets within the Q1 or M2 districts in limited circumstances, which is detailed in the both staff report and the submittal from the applicant. According to the applicant, the proposed text amendment would provide the Plan Commission with increased flexibility in regulating and authorizing certain business to operate in ways that are reasonable with respect to the character of terrain, surrounding development, or other special conditions that would justify such modification. The applicant provided further detail than what both had originally reviewed in their presentation this evening, which was extremely helpful, especially the image, providing an example of where this could apply in the future. And I think we clarified during the public hearing that this is something that could happen in the future. This does not, changing the text doesn't, guarantee it. It's something that would have to be brought forward. Are there any questions from the Plan Commission regarding the proposed text amendment?
This is a recommendation to the town board, correct?
Correct. The last amendment was to the Lisbon Code of Ordinances, a different chapter. This is to the zoning code.
So I guess I just want to be clear on this, so on the property, you have a property that, say, Dawson's own. This is allowing them to quarry basically within 20 feet of that property line, but in no regards can it be less than 200 feet to the next property. So if the property is only 150 foot wide, so that would be 170, it has to still go the extra 30 feet to be 200 feet away from the property that Dawson's do not own. I should be very clear on that.
I mean, I think that's the proposal from their site plan and plan of operation. I don't think that's the wording of the ordinance. The ordinance allows them to quarry right up to the lot line. And it did in the past, when you had two quarry operations, you don't want a cliff at the lot line. because they're gonna quarry and they're gonna figure out a mutual reclamation plan. But this allows still quarrying right up to the lot line if they own it. They're not proposing that, they're proposing the 250 feet. Maybe council, you.
Well, they're not though.
We're only talking about the ordinance amendment, not their proposal, not the site plan.
Well, this isn't, would allow them to get that close though.
Right, what this is trying to do is in the situation where if they buy the property, so they gotta meet that first criteria, they gotta buy the property. Then they can have the opportunity to, you get that picture with the red corners? So they buy those two houses. They could move up to the boundary line, so there would be no setback immediately against the residential properties they just bought that are now owned by Land and Stone. But they could go no further. So they could go to those property lines, and so it would square off, the red would be gone, and it would be blue on the outside.
Sure.
Joe's question is if that lot was less than 250 feet, we would still then have.
Correct.
the next property. So,
But I want to make sure that it's worded that way. Again, right now, totally honorable.
You're
people
saying,
are
so
doing it.
if the residential lot that they purchased is not, to trigger this, is not 200 feet, that they have to move it back, they couldn't go to the line. I think
This
that's right.
lot is owned by Dawson's, the quarry is here.
Yeah,
This lot is zoned, it's 150
100
feet.
right.
This lot is not owned.
Right.
The way this is worded, you could get within 20 feet of this lot line because they own it. But this property needs to be at least
Right.
200, and our code says 200 feet, you're doing 250, but it would have
Right.
to be 200 feet away from this property line.
I think that is still correct, right?
So how do
I
we
think-
put the wording in there to make sure that 20 years from now, somebody understands what we did tonight?
Right. I just want to make sure that's very clear.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't, you mean the requirement for the 200 feet setback is still in the code. Do you have the?
For elimination.
Correct.
So they wouldn't have to meet.
No, wrong one.
You're
Right.
reading it the way I read it, John.
You're correct.
So no part of quarry operation shall be permitted closer than 200 feet, nor shall any access road parking area or office building be located closer than 50 feet to any property line, except with the written consent of the owner of the adjoining property, or except where the said line is abutting or abutting the existing quarry operation, but in no case does such operation be closer than 20 feet, except with the agreement between the board corporation. So this is the,
That's the
say-
old one.
that's the one that's not being changed. Right. So I think this is saying this is an exception to the 200 feet.
From as we said, we think. And we want to make sure this
No,
is.
no, this is an exception to the 200 feet.
Right,
to the
right.
20.
Right.
Right, but we want to make sure that because this is a unique circumstance. I mean, this is
Right.
not something you'd see anywhere else in the town. I just want to make sure that the next
So
property
the,
owner.
so I guess what I was trying to say is we're not changing that piece. So if we're trying to change, all we're saying is in this one, in the one that we're changing, we're limiting that 100-foot limit if we own both the properties that we could squeeze it down. I think what you're saying is then we need to amend this
I want to make
section
sure you're not getting
closer
within
than
200 feet to
Right.
the next, if they don't own it. Because I mean, this is going to come into. Right.
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 Because the section that's on the screen remains, that limit still exists, except for this other circumstance we're suggesting amendment for.
Well, I think maybe
It says the adjoining property though.
Can't we say adjoining unowned property? Or something that affects so that covers that pushes it back to 200 feet? Or property
That's a way
unowned
to
by
word
the
that, John.
applicant or something like that, because
Well, this one not only isn't being changed, this isn't the one that you have to worry about. It's the other one. Yeah, in the Q1 or M2 district, you have that one to put up. Is that the one that's up?
And now it's up.
Pardon?
It's up now.
Okay.
We could just add, but in no instance shall the quarry operation be closer than 200 feet to a third-party owned property or a non.
I don't, however, it's gotta be worded to make it have teeth.
So, I mean,
Lisa,
just-
Did you get that down? It's close to, and we'll tweak it between now and then the town board meeting, but for tonight's discussion to satisfy the commissioners, were you able to capture any of that language that he was suggesting? If not, we'll
So-
repeat it.
Yeah,
If I'm understanding correctly, we're taking what is on screen.
Correct.
And adding, provided however, that in no case shall,
so be less than 200 feet from any property not owned by the applicant, or, but it's the,
You said a third party.
I said a third, either owned by a third party or not owned by the quarry operator and or its related entity.
yes. Okay, got it.
I think that covers your concern. Because I can,
You can come back with exact wording before the board meeting. We
okay,
haven't put
I
it in
think,
an
but I
ordinance.
think that,
Yeah, well, let's look
We have
at
the
it.
general understanding, everybody in the commission understands the general intent on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Sticky wicket.
Any comments or questions on anything else from the commission? Ed,
No, Mr. Chairman.
Joe? No. Brian? No. I don't either. Is there a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I think you should make that motion.
I guess I would move, approve the request by applicant Hans Dawson Land and Stone Products Inc. for the amendments to the town zoning code, in particular but not limited to section 4H25 H and IV regarding conditional use exceptions and recommendation of the town board of the same with all the noted exceptions we made tonight.
And as amended.
It is amended.
I'll second.
Joe made it, Joe seconded it,
It's gotta be right.
right? 100%.
That's it.
Any final discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item D, discussion necessary action on the request by applicant Hans Dawson's of Land and Stone Products Inc. to rezone the property located at North 52 West 22504 Lisbon Road, tax key LSBT 0285.986.001, and a vacant parcel on Lisbon Road known as LSBT 0285.982.003, and from the A10 Agricultural Zoning District to the Q1 Quarrying Zoning District, property located at North 52 West 22444 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.982, and from the A5 Mini Farm Zoning District to the Q1 Quarrying Zoning District, and the property is located at North 53 West 22490 Lisbon Road, tax key LSBT 0285.983.001, North 52 West 22508 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.984, and North 52 West 22500 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0285.985, from the R1 Suburban Single Family Residential Zoning District to the Q1 Quarrying Zoning District, and no changes are proposed to areas under the Waukesha County Shoreland Zoning Authority. And Orin.
So there are two specific conditions added in the staff report regarding the rezoning. That the subject property shall be rezoned as proposed, limited to the tax key numbers that the rezoning is being proposed for in the town of Lisbon. That the rezoning shall not be in full force and effect until the petitioner obtains approval of a conditional use permit, including a site plan / plan of operation from the town of Lisbon. And I would propose that based on our earlier discussion, add a condition that the rezone shall not be in full force and effect until the town approval of a comprehensive development plan amendment to change the future land use from mixed use to extraction.
which is in the process of occurring and will take place within the timeframe prior to this going before the town board. That will make sure the consistency requirement of the state statute is met.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Can we do this? What Orange just said makes sense, and it needs, I understand why it's stated that way. But can we make a condition to the approval of this based upon something on the assumption that that comprehensive plan amendment will go through?
Yes.
It's like we're backing this thing up 2 steps here.
So if I can address that, Commissioner, that even if the applicant had proposed their own amendment to the comprehensive development plan, that would be on this, that could have been on this same agenda. There would be a similar process whereby at the board meeting, the comp plan amendment would have to be approved prior to the rezoning. And you would have them on the agenda in that order so that the same thing was occurring.
Okay.
So what you have is a pre-proposed amendment from the town that's in the process of being approved. This application coming along subsequently a little later, but they're still going to meet in the end appropriately for the requirement of the state statute, the consistency requirement to be met.
I just want to make sure we don't go forward 2 steps and have to go back 1 and then it invalidates. I just want to make sure.
Correct.
So if everybody's fine with that, that's fine.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Ed,
No, Mr. Chairman.
Joe,
None.
Brian?
No questions.
Anything else from staff?
Just that we would add that as a 4th condition under the rezoning item.
And that this is a recommendation to the town board.
All right, is there a motion on this item?
I'll help you out, Mr. Chairman. You read it once. I would move that the action on the request by applicant Hans Dawson / Stone Products, Inc. to rezone the property located at North 52 West 22504 Lisbon Road / tax code LSBT of 0285.986.001 and a vacant parcel in Lisbon Road known as LSBT of 0285.982.003 from an A10 agricultural zoning district to the Q1 quarrying zoning district. The property located at North 52 West 22444 Lisbon Road / LSBT of 0285.982 from the A5 mini farm zoning district to the Q1 quarrying zoning district, and the properties located at North 53 West 22490 Lisbon Road / LSBT of 0285.983.001 North 52 West 22508 Lisbon Road / LSBT of 0285.984 and North 52 West 22500 Lisbon Road / LSBT of 0285.985 from the R1 suburban single family residential zoning district to the Q1 quarrying zoning district. No changes as proposed to areas under Waukesha County Shoreline Zoning Authority. Recognition of planner comments, Foth, and last comment that I just forgot, just dropped out of my head. That you
Condition
mentioned.
not to be,
CUP, SPPOO approval, CDP amendment, and recommendation to town board.
in the comp plan.
So move.
Second.
Is that appropriate, Mr. Chairman?
I hope so. Okay, just to be in discussion in here, the lands that are being rezoned were previously owned by Vulcan. Correct, but then they had the quarry. Do we know about how long they've owned a lot of these properties?
Some of them we purchased. I think we purchased all of those. Yeah, those were all purchased by us.
Okay,
After we bought them all from Corey.
okay, all right. But everything that's being asked to be rezoned is property you own.
Yes.
I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item E, discussion necessary action on request by applicant Hans Dawson's of Land and Stone Products, Inc. to amend the area of the existing conditional use permit for a quarry in the Q1 quarrying zoning district to include the properties identified as tax keys LSPT 0285.986.001, LSPT 0285.982.003, and LSPT 0285.982, LSPT 0285.983.001, LSPT 0285.984, and LSPT 0285.985, and recommendation to the town board are the same. Warren?
Both has five rather specific conditions and several other general, I'm sorry, we have 7 specific conditions, and there, number 8 is other conditions, which are boilerplate, if you will, general conditions that will appear on all, conditional use permits. The specific conditions are pertinent to the specific tax keys that the conditional use permit will be limited to. The conditional use approval being limited to Hans Dawson Land and Stone Products, Inc. and Sussex Quarry LSP LLC for quarry operation with on-site extraction and processing of limestone into construction aggregates on the subject properties in accordance with plans, documents, and specifications presented in the Town of Lisbon Plan Commission on January 6, 2022, except as further restricted or modified herein, that the conditional use approval excludes those portions of, quote, the property, unquote, located in the village of Sussex, and then their respective tax keys that we mentioned earlier were included in the legal description in the submittal, and that the site plan and plan of operation approval is limited with some specific conditions. And I have an amendment to number 4B. The number of employees should state 50 full-time employees as presented in the plan of operation. Hans, is that? Okay. That's what I'm referencing, is there's a typo there, and it should state as presented 50 full-time employees. Is that correct? Okay. And that the hours of operation, as stated in the condition, are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we discussed amending that from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So there would be those 2 proposed changes to the conditions as presented. There's some conditions that the petitioner obtain necessary approvals to satisfy all comments, conditions, and concerns of the Plan Commission, board, town engineer, town planner, town attorney with respect to the submitted plans and documents and specifications, and Waukesha County regarding erosion control and stormwater management, including stormwater maintenance agreement, and that the conditional use permit shall be filed with the Waukesha County Register of Deeds as approved and formed by the town attorney, and then boilerplate language regarding reimbursement of fees. So and the rest are the boilerplate general conditions. Are there any questions regarding the CUP or site plan and plan of operations from the commission?
I have a question. You've got a number of employees, it's 50. So in 5 years, you add 10 more people. Does that mean he's got to come back here again? I mean, the plan of operation is changing then.
Correct.
I mean,
Wouldn't be the conditional use, though, it'd be the plan of op. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. We always say what's really important, you put in the rezoning, and then what's less important, you put in the conditional use, and what you would be willing to look at Without a public hearing, you put in the site plan and plan of operation approval.
Okay, I just don't want to have them go through, we had this before. They had 2 people and they gotta go through this whole process.
As the president chairman has said, not the entire process, but yes, they would come back for a site plan and plan of operation approval, because that's where you have the condition, correct? Or do you have it in the conditional use?
Right now, we have it in the conditional use.
Okay, then it would have to be a public hearing. I apologize.
The,
I would suggest we move it to the plan of operation, that condition. So that if they hire 5 people, they don't have to go to a public hearing, the whole CU process.
And they would only, even if they change the site plan and plan of operations, just so you know, if you find it to be a substantial change, you would require them to go to the conditional use. So you'd still always have, reserve yourself the right to go to the conditional use, even if you placed it in the plan of operation, if you found it to be a significant change.
correct.
Just for some context, we gave ourselves some buffer. That's why I asked.
Okay.
The limits of this particular site, you know, because our company has over 100 people. but
Right,
spread
that-
across 6 sites. This is a big site for us, but we've got quite a bit of wiggle room in there. And
Okay.
we think we can run with 50 people for our foreseeable future.
Okay, and then if you're not concerned about it, then I won't be concerned about it.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll be dead by then.
I hope not.
Well, I don't know, it's not 11 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, Lauren?
I didn't have anything else. If there's any other questions?
Ed, anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Joe?
No.
Brian? One thing that was brought up in the public hearing portion was you have emergency hours in the village of Sussex. So you were asking for 6 to 8, but, and JD had brought up about emergency hours.
So that is in the plan of operation. In plans of operation. Okay, page 9. Section 11, paragraph A. Oh, that's. Page 6. Okay, so page 6, which is section 4, sub H. The hours of operation will be from 6 to, and then we'll modify that to 6 PM, Monday through Friday, and 6 AM to 4 PM Saturday. No operations on Sundays or legal holidays. If business conditions require additional hours of operation and said additional requests, whether individually or collectively through the year, occur on any part of less than 30 days in the calendar year, the operator shall provide a written notice to Lisbon, to which there shall be no objection unless clear and substantial reason exists which justify denial of such additional hours of operation. So basically, this says the first 30 days collectively in the year, we have to notify the town. And then beyond the 30 days is the next sentence, requests for additional hours of operation, whether individually or collectively throughout the year, occurring on any part of more than 30 days, but less than 60 days in the calendar year, may be approved at the discretion of Lisbon. So then we would come and seek approval. And then anything over 60 days would then trigger plan commission approval up to and including the possibility of a new public hearing. So there's a couple of different stage gates that we negotiated with the village of Sussex in, I guess that would be 2014.
So just so everybody realizes, for 30 days, they can operate essentially 24/7
Yeah, from shipping. Yeah,
from the shipping.
just
end of it.
shipping.
Just, yeah,
Yeah, not
just to be
production.
clear.
Yeah,
Not
sorry.
production, just shipping.
Just
Shipping.
shipping.
Just shipping.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a big deal. Yeah,
That
that's
is a
fine.
big difference.
Yeah, we didn't read that last part.
I
to not
didn't read
extend
the
to
only
crushing
important
operations.
sentence in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, because
Hey,
English.
we have
getting
to,
late.
we have to justify this to the elected.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just shipping.
No crushing.
yeah, just
Yeah,
shipping.
you can still come to us. Obviously, we've had the quarries come in the past,
Yeah.
but. Okay, just so everybody's clear on that and I understand that. Okay, good.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
So is your comment related to the fact that they had agreed to the 6 to 6? But you're going to go with the 6 to 6 with the Sussex emergent, I hate to use the word emergency, but for lack of the
Exception.
time of night, the emergency provisions.
Right,
the exception provision.
Exceptions.
I just want to be clear what,
right. So
recommendation.
while we might be limiting the hours of operation, the 6 to 6 in the Lisbon portion, it doesn't, you have the option for the 30 days and then 60 days.
Mr. Chairman, are we limiting the hours for that first 30 days to 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
No, this was their emergency.
Right, but are
Essentially, you
there,
can ship 24/7 is what you're allowed, right? Not Sundays. Correct. So they
okay,
can ship 24/7
that was the
for
clarification I
6
needed.
days.
Thank you.
Well, I assume that the planner will update his report for the town board meeting and you'll switch, if you're gonna move employee number to the site plan and you're gonna add the Sussex language in where you have 6 to 8 currently, you're gonna change it from 6 to 6, and then put all this language in there. Correct.
I'll amend condition 4B to include the 50 full-time employees, and I'll amend 4C to change the hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and I will add the rest of the language at subsection H. If so moved, yeah.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Nope.
Is there a motion on the CU?
I will make the motion to recommend to the town board request approval of the request by applicant Hans Dawson Land and Stone Products, Inc. to amend the area of the existing conditional use permit. Land, right? Yeah. For a quarry in the Q1 quarrying zoning district to include the properties identified as tax keys LSBT 0285986001, LSBT 0285982003, LSBT 02859882, LSBT 0285983001, LSBT 02859884, and LSBT 02859885 with planners for conditions and the provision for the exception for hours of operation as previously stated.
Recommendation of the town board?
Yes, that's what I started out with. Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Does that cover everything we discussed?
I didn't hear him say, but I apologize that the employees are moved out of the CU.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Macy, I forgot that. The employee provision.
I thought I just wasn't listening close because you
No,
don't usually forget that.
I have a way of putting things to sleep. Yes, you're correct.
The second's okay with that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item F, discussing and necessary action, request by applicant Hans Dawson's of Land and Stone Products, Inc. to amend the area of the existing site plan and plan of operation for a quarry in the Q1 zoning district to include the properties identified as tax keys LSBT 0285.986.001, LSBT 0285.982.003, LSBT 0285.982, LSBT 0285.983.001, LSBT 0285.984, and LSBT 0285.985, and recommendation to the town board of the same. All right, we kind of touched on this on the last one. Any questions or comments? Mr. Peel? None. Had anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Brian,
No,
is there a motion on this item?
I'll make
Uh,
a motion. All right, sorry, Ed.
Oh,
I thought I'd give it a try for once. All right, I move to approve the action, or the request by applicant Hans Dawson of Land and Stone Products Incorporated to amend the area of the existing site plan and plan of operation for a quarry in the Q1 quarrying zoning district to include the properties
identified as the following Lisbon tax key numbers: 0285986001, LSBT 0285982003, LSBT 02859882, LSBT 0285983001, LSBT 02859884, and LSBT 02859885, and recommendation to the board of the same.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 5 is the planner report. No plan report for tonight?
We're speaking for.
I concur.
Item 6 is a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Second by Joe. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're out at 10:28.
I told my wife I'd be home by 5.
Yeah, liar.
Here's my pile of shit. I am not going home.
Whoops.